Last time, on Asmiliath adventures, the Golden Hearts find their way back to Corel after an overdue absence, though this time bearing the news of their newly appointed mayor, Jarek Dissel. Upon arriving, Croak greets them and pulls Jarek and Valorant into a debrief of the happenings in Corel since they had last visited. While the rest of the party settle in, Rolly goes to check on Hawthorne, the seemingly shady merchant that has taken up residence in the town and opened up shop. After confronting the gnome about his faulty healing potion, the two seem to reach an understanding before Rolly leaves him with a warning. Meanwhile, back in the Great Hall, Jarek learns that things are more or less moving forward, with minor setbacks occurring here and there. The main two he is informed of is the unskilled labor within the lumberyard and a disheartened townsperson that was rescued from the monastery by the Golden Hearts, that is now spreading his foul mood amongst the populace. Hopefully solving the labor problem, Jarek moves the artisans that Duke Braun had acquired to the lumberyard, but leaving the former prisoner turned citizen behind. After squaring away a few more minor problems, the party prepare to set off toward Dragoncliff Mines, with the ultimate goal of facing Horrm'Tar, the Mutilated, high up in the Hunter's Ridge Mountains. Having almost completed their journey to Dragoncliff Mines, Adam, the gnome quartermaster, says he is hearing whispering from the cart. Upon closer examination, the party discover that Marcus's old sword is magically weeping blood from its blade. After various attempts to destroy it or identify it, the party decide to keep it until they find a way to dispel the magic from it. This decision doesn't last long though, as the party stop to camp just below Dragoncliff Mines, and Rolly decides to attune to it anyway. He comes to learn that the entity inside the sword is called Blood Cleaver, and has seemingly been summoned into existence by the act of Marcus in the Butcher's Hole. We pick back up with our party as the wise dwarf attempts to sever his connection to the blade in the twilight hours of the day. Rolly, give me a wisdom saving throw.
Yes, it should be simple. I mean, I can pick it up, I can put it down.
You said that about something else, didn't you?
Oh.
Yep.
Thor, you're not here right now. But,
well, that's why I'm not talking as Thor.
Yeah, I gathered as much, but just to remind you. But anyway, so Rolly, after having this back and forth with this blade, and then conversing with Valorant, who seems very opposed to you staying attuned to this weapon, you having it kind of like thrown it down on the ground in showcasing that it did not have any sort of hold over you, you kind of nonchalantly pick the blade back up, and as you would with any other magical item, you attempt to kind of sever your connection with it, and as you begin that process, you hear that voice in the back of your head kind of slithering in. It goes, "You have to do better than that, Rolly Halfbeard."
What do you mean I have to do better than that?
I will let you go once you feed me.
Oh, God. Worse than a pet. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. Valorant, quit looking at me like that.
Valorant just sighs loudly.
Okay. So at this point, you guys are at the end of the day. Adam kind of doing the normal camp setup for you guys as you all center around this sword. As you're all conversing and Rolly, you're attempting to figure out what to do. Thor, you have been kind of keeping tabs where the party's at as you've been messing with Buffy over the past couple days. And now that you realize you've kind of camped below Dragoncliff Mines, you're like, I should probably check in with them at this point. So as this conversation is going on, Thor just comes striding out of the woods towards you guys with Buffy in tow.
I know. I don't understand what you want from me, Buffy. I still don't know. Oh, hey guys, how's it going?
Thor, have you been in the woods the whole time?
Yeah, did you not see me? I was I'm this tall, walking around. Me and Buffy, we've just been hanging out, having a good time. Still trying to figure out what the heck's going on with him.
Oh, I thought you went to go take a piss. Well, looks like that worked out then.
Hasn't it been days?
It's been 3 days since you've last seen the party.
It's been 3 days, Jarek. I think, I didn't drink that much.
Oh. Well, you're a big guy. I figured, big bladder.
So what's up? What's going on here?
Well, I thought maybe I found a toy for you, but I think I may have screwed up, to be honest with you.
You found a
Not
toy
a
for me?
toy.
Okay, not the toy. Okay. So,
Really, it's a cursed sword. Like,
It's not proven to be cursed yet. It's inhabited. There's a difference.
you found the cursed sword?
I found a sentient sword.
Possessed sword.
Sentient?
Probably a demon.
Maybe, but who's to say?
Are sentinel and possessed the same thing?
in essence, yeah. Really, the thing is bloody as all hell. I don't know what you're talking about there.
Do I see what he's talking about?
No, you would not see the seeping blood coming off of it unless you were using either detect magic or looking through the detect magic telescope that the party acquired last session.
Gotcha.
So it just looks like a regular sword for you.
Isn't that Marcus's old sword?
Yes, it appears to be.
So, as Thor is kind of getting into the conversation, Buffy comes lumbering up, and you guys aren't quite used to having Buffy around, and you're not really used to Buffy being this casual with you. Seemingly something has changed since the last time you've seen Buffy, really being, I think, the last person of the party to actually visibly see him. But he comes trundling forward, and you see on the tip of his nose stands Carl, who's kind of arms at his side, superhero pose, standing there. And you see the kind of ruby messaging stone that's set inside of his head is glowing kind of brightly. And Buffy walks over to Jarek, holding Carl towards him with the stone glowing, which kind of signifies that there is a message.
Oh, thank you, Buffy, and I'll grab Carl underneath the arms, kind of lift him up and be like, hello?
Okay. You see Carl's head kind of lollygagging a little bit back and forth as you shake him, eventually kind of staying in place. And Jarek, as you take the moment to kind of center in on it and pull the message from the stone itself, more or less the gist of the message is it's from Croak, who now has the other side of the messaging stone, and it informs you that Armos, the okay, if you want to go this way, we'll do it this way. Boss Armos, the prisoner you saved, has been found murdered in the woods. No suspects as of late. Tied tree.
Shit. Well, let me think here.
Wait.
Croak.
Who is that from? What?
Croak sent a message. Apparently the crazy guy got killed.
Yeah, see,
Crazy guy. What crazy guy?
Yeah, well, it's quite simple, really. Jarek's the mayor now.
Yeah, I knew that already. No. I got that part. Who's the crazy guy?
One of the guys we rescued, kind of lost it after, the terrible torture and everything. So, understandable.
Is this one of the people that you told Jarrell was the reason that they were here?
No. This was different group. This is part of the people we rescued out of the monastery.
Yeah, didn't you tell them that Jarrell was the reason they were in pain?
No, Thor.
I don't know. You say it so much. I don't remember anymore.
Well, I think that that score has been settled. given that Jarell is a vegetable now. Shit. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. And I'll kind of tap on the stone a little bit, I guess in the middle of Carl's face. Like, Croak, look into this. But if it's hard, don't worry about it. Thanks for your hard work. Love, Jarek.
Okay. So that will transfer into Carl and then send off the other messaging stone, and you have sent that.
Wait, so the crazy man got killed?
Yeah. I'm just gonna write that one off as no big loss.
Wait, whoa.
And hope nothing.
Can I just
What?
point out that 2 people have died, and the first person that we saw die... Oh, no, we didn't see somebody die. We saw blood on an axe, right? You remember Bloody Axe?
Yeah, but that was Hawthorne's axe, if I remember correctly, and that was like not human blood; it was black. I think it was orc blood or something.
I don't know.
To be fair, he denies that it was his axe, so...
I mean, if you were killing people and you didn't want people to know, wouldn't you deny that you killed them?
Now, there's no need to bring up old wounds, denial of murder, but that's, I'm sure Croak has it handled.
I don't like that guy. He's weird. I think we need to get him out of our town. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's weird, and people keep dying, or things keep dying. There's blood, there's death. There's a lot of things going on with that guy. Maybe we should just kill him.
Hawthorne or Croak?
Hawthorne, not Croak. Why would we kill Croak?
Oh, okay, yeah, no. I don't know, Thor. He seems like he might be useful one day.
Don't just kill somebody, Thor. Not until they've asked for it.
Okay. I keep my suspicion.
So, Rolly, you were still holding Blood Cleaver at this point, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything particular with it now that you have failed to sever your connection?
I would, does it come with the sheath? I forgot to ask.
Yes, it does.
I'd sheath it and find a convenient place to secure it to my belt.
Okay. Well, yes, unless there's other things to... Oh, Valor, you gonna say something?
Well, Valoran just notes that Rolly girds himself with it as opposed to putting it down.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't say anything.
Okay. So, is there anything else you guys want to discuss or go over before you kind of settle in for the night and then get ready to go to Dragcliff Mines in the morning?
Yes, I'd like to know about this guy that we're going to go kill.
Okay. Well,
because I know nothing about him.
So there are notes that I gave to the Discord that you and Jarek have, Jarek being able to read them. He can either say that he's, like, giving you the information at some point, or you can ask him for it if you haven't gotten it at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely want to know, like, what information is on the pieces of page.
Pieces of page?
Yep.
Okay. Let me throw that up on the screen real quick. I put it on the wrong layer. So, we can go ahead and start that conversation, or ask Jarek, or go over the notes yourself if you like, however you want to handle that information.
Maybe we'll take, like, a watch together.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I can roll play that out if you want.
Okay. I mean, unless
Yeah, I think that as we settle down for the night, Jarek would definitely want to go over kind of what the plan is. Okay, guys. Considering how much of our success seems to be pure luck, I think maybe going into this a little bit better prepared would be a good idea. And so he'll pull out his journal, pull out the papers, kind of spread them out on the ground, hold up the wanted poster first and be like, so we're going after one of these sons of bitches. You can tell on the paper, you can see how cut this guy is. Like, point at the muscles and whatnot. Like, Thor, this is going to be your job to kill this guy, because I don't think we're going to have much of a chance.
Well, okay. I had a pretty strange dream that me and Valorant took on like a whole horde of things in a cave. It was pretty epic. I think me and him could take probably the whole place. But, Rolly, you could probably be there with us. I mean, you're pretty hard to hit. I really don't know where you fit into this set. You could be like, however many miles back. And if you can buy a longbow or something, you could just shoot them. I don't know how you help, but you could help.
Did his name become Seth? I thought it was Jarek.
God dang it.
No, Thor. I've been thinking about this. I'm just going to stand at the back and yell insults at them the whole time. And, hopefully it'll demoralize them a little bit. I may not be a smart guy, but I've got a pretty sharp tongue, if you ask my wife.
Oh.
We're not asking your wife about your tongue, Jarek.
I try to avoid her like a plague.
What? She's the love of my life, guys. I don't know where I'd be without her.
What happened to this 180 shift?
Thor. I know it's hard for you young folks to understand, but sometimes a woman comes into your life and there's just something about her that you can't let go of. And even in the worst of times, she just brings something out of you like a fireball. It just burns through everything else, all over the place. Sometimes you break a bed. It happens.
Okay.
Why didn't you marry that woman instead of your wife?
How dare you, sir?
You're saying that your wife brings you a burning sensation. Interesting.
I mean, it definitely sounded like you guys were performing some sort of exorcism in your room that you shared.
Well, I dare say I exorcised some demons that night.
So anyways, the people we're trying to kill...
Yeah. So here's the notes, and here, Thor, I'll read it off for you. To any lord who receives this letter, please understand the Delorus Heights fort has been overrun by a warband of beasts. Sorry, there's a lot of blood on here. All the men who have been butchered, besides myself, who is currently holding up at Dragoncliff Mines. Please send men or I.
For the integrity of our southern border.
Yes, thank you, Rolly.
Yes, words. Figure a bard would be better at them.
I don't read a lot, Rolly. Do you know how long it's taken me to get through your medical books? I'm still not even finished.
Okay, so they're at this fort, and everybody's dead, and it's a bunch of beast people.
I guess that would be a abridged version. So I think, we head out to Dragon Cliff, see if they've heard anything, and maybe stock up on supplies and head into the mountains.
Okay. And what is this guy's name again?
Horrm'Tar the Mutilated.
Horrm'Tar the Mutilated. Would I know anything about that?
Probably not Thor, no.
Okay.
Jarek, roll me a history check real quick. Because that will go exceedingly well.
I was going to
It
say,
always does.
if he's from the south, I'm from the north, so I don't know that I would have ever encountered him. There's always a chance. Hey!
Okay.
Look at that. It's an 18, right? Because your modifier hasn't transferred over.
No, for that one it will be a flat roll. So
Okay, cool.
No modifier.
Gotcha. Okay. So, you've lived near Aether, which is the kind of small zone to the south of Giles' kingdom that kind of holds, like, goblinoids and beastmen and the like, more or less your entire life. Thrice Tower definitely being close, but not in the kind of immediate threat of the area. So you've heard stories, people passing by in your tavern and whatnot, different soldiers and whatnot, particularly maybe your son-in-laws that your your daughters have married. You don't quite know about whom Horrm'Tar the Mutilated himself. You don't quite know any sort of specifics about him, but you have heard of kind of infamous Leonin warriors that every so often will kind of lead expeditions into the more civilized part of the continent, looking for plunder and riches and that kind of thing, or just trying to escape kind of the brutality of, never-ending tribal warfare that is Aether. So that's kind of what you would imagine this warrior is probably fulfilling, that kind of leadership role, more or less. But you don't know him individually.
So he's not that famous.
I'll tell you. Well, no, but Thor, these bands will just spring up from the south and kill everything in their wake in order to gain glory. I imagine much the same as your kinsman would do.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much exactly what we do. We're not at, like, each other's throats all the time. We have a little system, but, yeah, we definitely do go to, raid places. Yep.
Yeah, no offense, Valoran. It was never Thor. Thor was never allowed on those raids.
I'm aware of the complications. Don't mind me.
Okay, well, I didn't do it. I'm just saying, I'm here with you and we're having fun. We're having a good time. Anyways, so this guy, oh man, yeah, he's kind of jacked. Yeah, we could probably kill him. Pretty easy, I think.
Okay. Then yeah. I guess Thor and I'll take first watch if you guys are good with that, and we can head up to Dragon Cliff Mines in the morning.
Okay. I imagine Rolly and Valoran, you'll take the 2 ending watches, however you want to flip-flop that. Everyone go ahead and give me a round of perception checks.
Alright.
Jesus. Okay, I just wasted probably the best rolls you guys are going to have this session, but that's fine. So, Thor and Jarek, as you settle in for the night, kind of the early part of the night, you are roughly camped out where you kind of diverged off the path and into the woods to where the clearing was, where the bandit camp back in session 1 and 2, where you dealt with them, and the late Mayor Hillthorn valiantly lost his life. So you're kind of stuck in a familiar territory, but not overly familiar. But you just, listen to the various kind of nightlife of the woods surrounding you. The road that you guys have been traveling on, especially the Olympic Dragoncliff Mines, is not, traveled endlessly. So it's kind of a peaceful, two-person watch for the most part. Nothing too exciting going on. Thor, unless you want to do otherwise, Buffy, whenever it's time to kind of rest for the night, is now going to kind of like come around you, curl up, and act almost as like a bed for you to lay on, kind of like sleeping with you more or less.
I will accept this. I would like to ask JD a question.
Okay.
Hey JD.
I imagine
What?
Jarek would try and cuddle up with y'all into the warm bear fur.
No, this is just weird. It's just me and Buffy. It's a me and Buffy thing. You're like as big as Buffy. You can't do this.
How cold is it outside?
You're still in springtime, so it's not overly cold at night. And you're still at a pretty low elevation.
You can't expect to hold all that body heat. When it starts getting cold outside, it's a matter of survival, but for now, we can let you keep your bear to yourself.
Oh, so now you want my bear. Thank you, Asleep Rolly. I really appreciate your insight.
I know what you're saying.
JD.
Yeah. Thor, what's up?
I'll pull out the papers.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me read these things? I don't know how to read. I want to know how to read.
Yeah. Common is very useful to know how to read. So this letter is called a K, and you pronounce it like K. The next one is ah. Or no, do you just want it faster than that? Okay, yeah. Let's see. This one is Captain Easto. We've spotted a war band of beasts moving across the Tarian Valley. From what I hear from the scouts, they are a mixture of those unholy, twisted beasts that try to mimic man. Man, this guy's racist. The only reason I worry and feel it's necessary to inform you is the men are talking about it being Horrm'Tar the Mutilated. There have been no confirmed sightings of him, sir, but the worry of him moving this far north drives me to write this letter. Let me know whatever course you think is fit. Sergeant Ryler, Hunter's 11th Company.
So are you going to attempt to teach Thor how to read, kind of like going through the letter?
Yeah.
Alright, both of you give me
I'm
intelligence checks.
Oh, Jesus.
That is a nat 1. Or technically a 0, not a -1.
Okay.
In D&D Beyond. Oh, no, that's Thor. I'm so sorry.
Yep, you're good. Okay. So, Thor, as you reach out to Jarek, attempting to fulfill kind of a lingering need that you've had to be able to read the different bits of paper that the party come across, he begins to start reading. And normally you can understand Jarek just fine, but for whatever reason, when he's reading from the paper, it is a whole new world. You're dropped into this gibberish land where everything's upside down and nothing quite makes sense. And the words he's saying are about as understandable as like ancient Elvish. And when he finishes reading the letter, you just kind of like... So.
JD, I think this is great progress. We'll probably have to do this at least 70 more times for me to read a letter.
I helped my daughters learn to read too, and they took so long, and it happens, Thor.
That is a frightening thought. Okay, well, I'm gonna head to bed. Good night, JD. Oh wait, I have to wake up somebody. I'll just I'll throw. I was gonna throw my barrel, but no, I'll throw Carl at Rolly, and he'll just tap Rolly awake, and he can do his watch. You don't have to go through it if you don't want to.
Gotcha. So, Rolly, as you get up and, settle in for your watch, having been rudely awakened by a stick figure landing on your chest, similar scene as to before, kind of a nice peaceful night, maybe you smoke up your pipe or something, kind of passing the time. Maybe around the middle of the night, when the moon is the highest in the sky, faintly off the woodlands kind of to your west, you think you hear, heavy footfalls that don't quite match any sort of animal or rodent or, bird that you would imagine is kind of awake at this time of night. It doesn't really get too close, and it doesn't make any noises beyond that, but that is what you hear.
I mean, would I have compared it to, what a horse would sound like, or...?
No, it's kind of a, rhythmic, consistent, soft, ever so gentle, crunching noise where you can tell that, its footfalls kind of pressing on stuff, but it's not someone, tromping through the woods or some sort of big beast. You could easily kind of guess or kind of infer that it's some sort of humanoid creature, person, entity kind of moving a small distance away from the party.
Towards us, or...?
You would probably hear it kind of softly growing to the point where, you are able to discern it, and then it stops. And then it's up to you, how long you wait.
Yeah, as soon as I heard something like that, I would, I'd go over to where Valorant's sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And Valorant, wake up. Something out.
He's in his tent that he bought, set up somewhere, sort of kind of away from the center of camp. And the first thing that comes out of the flap is the end of his glaive.
You might need that, but not now. Come here, there's something out here. I need your help listening.
He climbs out.
So you're I'm imagining using your perception check to kind of listen out to see if you hear something similar. So as Roll, you kind of took the time to move across the camp and get Valorant. You don't hear the footfalls pick up. Once you get him out of the tent, kind of allowing him to listen in with you, you do hear the footfalls, but this time growing fainter away from you, but you both distinctly do hear them.
You hear that?
Yes.
Well, it's not natural, and I figure I'd share it with somebody.
Isn't it? Natural, I mean. We are in the hinterlands.
Well, better safe than sorry. Go back to bed. If it develops, I'll scream for you.
How close does it sound to me?
Your best guess, maybe 60 to 100 feet.
Just indecent. Yeah.
I'm content just to let it move on, whatever it is.
Okay.
I go back up. No light source or anything. I'd just be looking off in the dark, trying to see if I could see anything.
Okay. So, as you kind of take your position back up, Valorant going back to bed, maybe about an hour or so passes. You're getting kind of near the last stint of your watch. You hear the footfalls coming again, maybe a little bit more northwest than you had heard last time, seemingly having moved approaching the camp in a different direction. And again, you hear it kind of growing closer and closer, and right as you're able to kind of hear it again, it stops. And then you hear it no longer.
I go back and quietly wake all the party.
Okay. So the rest of you are all very gently, I'm assuming, jostled awake by Rolly.
I'd explained to everyone kind of what I heard, and that it's a repeat sound, and that something is at the edge of our camp.
Are you waking up Adam, or are you letting Adam rest?
I'm waking up Adam.
Okay.
Rolly, and I'll try and be as quiet as possible on that. Rolly, did you try, like, lighting up a pebble and throwing it out there?
No, I didn't try that. So,
Okay,
I
guys,
can
do
see
you
just
wanna...
fine in the dark. It's trying to not be seen, Jarek.
Okay, well,
Well,
I
yeah,
can't see in the dark, so I have no idea what's going on.
Do y'all want to invite it into camp?
I mean, I could run after it with a rock that's glowing, because I can't see.
No, we'll just yell at it.
What if it runs away? We'll never
And
know.
hopefully it leaves us alone.
But we'll never know what it was.
Well, I could fire an arrow with light on it, and that would give us, Anyone opposed?
No, we can do that, and I will try to sneak.
How about your little pocket, son? Maybe just throw it out there.
Oh, yeah. No. Get the thing out.
Okay.
They're like, Thor, I think you should probably be the one to throw this.
Is
But just try not to aim for any trees or rocks, okay?
Is it breakable?
Well, I mean, it's glass, so yeah.
What? Why am I throwing it?
As the party is kind of locked in this conversation, not quite knowing how to proceed, you hear the footsteps now being a lot less quiet than it had been previously. Kind of taking a few steps, still can't quite see anything causing the noise, but you hear a voice coming from the trees, kind of clearly. Travelers, I mean no harm. I will approach with no ill intentions.
Well, that was simpler than throwing a glass sun at you.
It is clear from what I overheard that there is no danger to me here.
What? We are plenty dangerous.
So as you are speaking, so there is no light at this point, right? It's just really being able to see with dark vision?
I think as soon as I hear voice, I'd probably go ahead and just shamak and light the place up.
Yeah, so as you guys are all listening to the voice, Jarek's like, schmack, and you see this intense change in lighting, the darkness of the night being blasted away by this pocket sun, which is in a bright and enormous radius of light. The whole camp being flooded, every minute detail of each item kind of brought to the forefront. But as he's kind of holding it, trying to shield it a little bit from, casting everywhere, the immediate area around the camp is kind of brought into vision, and the tree line that is just outside the immediate area of where you guys were kind of resting, there stands a humanoid figure. He's rather tall, maybe about 7 or 8 feet tall from what you can guess at this from this distance. He is clad in what appears to be pretty thick, worn armor. It's a mixture of like studded leather and metal bits, kind of covering the more vital areas. And it has been through quite a bit. There's dents, scratches. Some of the actual curves of the armor have been bent out of place, giving it this very old, well-used kind of general appearance. The helmet that covers his head is like a half helm that kind of stops just beneath the nose, but beneath that is kind of like a rough, thick leather curtain that hangs from beneath the nose down to the rest of his face, kind of obscuring his entire body. And as you look him over, you realize that there is no visible part of his body. It's all clad in some sort of protection. When he steps forward into the light, you see him kind of tilting his head down just enough so that the light doesn't cast directly into the eye slits, but is kind of cut off a little bit by the top of his helmet, allowing him to not be staring directly into the pocket sun. But he steps forward, kind of tilting his head down, kind of, slowly gesturing with his body that he's presenting himself, and goes, "Travelers, I need to know your intentions here at Dragoncliff Mines. I hope they are not problematic."
Who the fuck are you?
You see his attention kind of shifting over to Jarek, and the way he moves is almost distinctly unnatural. Instead of the kind of like fluid, soft, relaxed movements of a human being, they're almost not mechanical in nature, but abrupt. Like the beginning of the movement starts quick and ends quick, and this kind of odd way that just kind of puts you on edge ever so slightly as he just simply shifts his head. But he turns his attention over to Jarek, and his distinct voice that seems to carry farther and louder and clearer than like a natural conversation would at this distance. He goes, "I am Benny Whiteflower, captain of the guard of Dragoncliff Mines, and I must make myself aware of any travelers making their way to my town."
Whoa. This is Jeremy's town.
Yes, Mayor Jeremy rules over Dragoncliff Mines, and I serve him.
Do I believe this guy?
My insight check.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good at these.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, there's nothing really to go off of as far as seeing any sort of insight into him being dishonest.
Gotcha.
Well, I must ask again, what are your intentions here, so that I may return back to my post?
Valorant's gonna either stoke or relight the campfire,
Okay.
almost nonchalantly, and as he's working on it, say, "Ought you be more worried about Leonin?"
You see the attention shift from Jarek over to Valorant, who's kind of in the background of the party working on the fire, and again, the kind of unnatural movements of the figure kind of shifting around. "The Leonin is a concern, and I am keeping up with the constant threat that it imposes upon Dragoncliff Mines, but from what I heard last night, I thought there were beating war drums coming up the road, 2 distinct booms that carried across the mountainside, so I thought it was fit to investigate a potential threat."
JD,
Oh,
did you do it?
no. It's fine. Nothing bad happens for the most part.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, that was us. Not war drums though. We're actually here to see Jeremy to help take care of your Leonin problem.
So you have been sent to aid Dragoncliff Mines.
Yeah, we were sent by Duke Braun.
Show the tiresome fellow the papers.
So he steps forward maybe another 15 or 20 feet, and then kind of stops, assuming that you will close the rest of the distance.
I'll have Carl bring him the papers.
Okay. So Carl goes to grab, the cat has to roll it up in his arms to manage to hold it, and the length of the paper is almost taller than him, so to avoid dragging it on the ground, he kind of has to like shuffle it up like really high in his grasp, and then he begins to kind of like trumble through the growth and the kind of shrubbery around the camp, you know, some of the leaves being as big as Carl is, and as he kind of manages to climb over some of the kind of bigger, difficult terrain that he is imposed with, he gets up to the figure and kind of tilts his head back, you know, the big stone kind of weighing it down a little bit, as again using that almost kind of abrupt movement, the figure like shoots his arm down, gripping the paper, like whipping it from Carl's grasp and then pulling it out, and you see him, without moving his head at all, just kind of glancing at the various papers presented in front of him, and then he just very gently rolls them back up and like puts them back into Carl's grasp, kind of tapping them down into place before he kind of stands back up tall and looking at you all. Well, it appears that your intentions are suitable. I shall return to Dragoncliff Mines then and await your arrival.
What was your name again?
I am Benny Whiteflower.
Benny White.
Benny Whiteflower.
Have you always been at Dragoncliff Mines?
I have recently found my services needed here, and that is why I am currently serving at the disposal of Dragoncliff Mines and her populace.
Gotcha. Because I was going to say, I didn't see you the first time we came through.
Sir, I'm just curious, is there any reason you're dressed like that?
He kind of glances down his apparel and then looks back up at you. One in my occupation finds that armor is a necessity.
No, I mean the face with the leather diaper thing in front of your mouth.
The less you reveal to one's enemies, the better advantage you wield.
Yes. As you said, there's no danger here. We're not enemies. Would you mind showing us your face?
I would mind, and he turns and begins to walk off towards the woods.
Guys, I'm 100% certain he's a possessed suit of armor.
I kind of like him.
Don't wake me again until my watch.
It's time for your watch, Valoran.
Is it actually?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
All right. Fine, then everyone else go to bed.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and turn off the pocket sun.
Is it clear that the tent is Valoran's only?
Is it?
If Rolly goes to get in it, it becomes clear.
Yeah, well, I'll go try to break off a piece of Buffy.
Okay. Give me an animal handling check, Rolly.
Yes, it reminds me of an old girlfriend I used to have. Much the same scent.
You know, Rolly, the hairy ones do keep you warmer at night, I will say that much.
Okay. So as you all kind of settle back in, Thor, are you allowing Rolly to attempt to sleep on the other side of Buffy?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, so as you all kind of settle back in, Rolly, you approach the kind of the back side of Buffy, as you know Thor's kind of curled up on the front of him, and as you like very gingerly kind of rest your hand on it, kind of making your presence known, you see Buffy raise his head up just enough to look over his back and at you. You just hear like oh, and then his head goes back down.
I'll have none of that attitude. You ate from my table, mister. Least you can do is share a bed. Now, give me a piece of that leg now. It's
Nice and comfortable.
So, as you speak to Buffy, Thor, you feel a bit of movement behind you, as Rolly kind of incites a little bit of reaction. Buffy kind of shoves his weight back away from you and attempts to kind of roll over on top of Rolly, who's on the other side, It's up to you if you want to try and avoid being smothered by a bear, Rolly.
Wouldn't mind that at all.
Okay. So, Buffy shifts his entire weight, rolling over kind of his hind legs and his, like, the gut of his belly kind of resting on top of you. And as you, like, feel the weight pressing, you see his head kind of crane down to look at you, and you're just, like, a nice, warm, hot, wild-tasting breath kind of filling your face before he just kind of slumps his head into the dirt and begins to kind of breathe more easily.
I was gonna try to help you.
I take a little piece of bacon from my last bacon sandwich and just put it on his tongue.
Okay. He will readily accept that, so good stuff. But you all find your way back to sleep, more or less, Valorant taking up the last watch. You're getting near kind of the end of night, the beginning of morning, the kind of small flavor of orange kind of hitting the sky. More or less, nothing new happens during your watch. The birds begin to chirp near the end of it. Everyone's, kind of snoring soundly. Adam now asleep with his dagger kind of resting on his chest after the interaction you had with Benny. But otherwise, you get into the morning with no real situation occurring.
Do I wake up with Buffy still there?
Yeah, I mean, if you wake up when, like, the sun rises, you'd be laying on Buffy's backside with him still laying on top of Rolly.
Rolly, wake up. I think you might be suffocating.
No, it's... I'm fine. The plate armor has kept me quite intact.
Well, that's good, I guess. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Valorant, anything happened while you were on watch?
No, nothing. He's packing up his stuff.
Alright, well, should we head to Dragoncliff Mines and meet Mr. White Man?
Well, we should probably go to Jeremy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're obviously going to see him first. He's a guard, okay? You don't just walk up to the mayor and, do whatever you want with him. That'd be crazy.
I mean, I guess.
So we're going to meet him first. So we meet him and then we get to the mayor.
Yeah. Here, let me get the dust off of us. And I'll go through a couple minutes of prestidigitation to clean us up real quick.
Okay. So you guys all kind of collect and then begin heading up towards Dragoncliff Mines?
Cool.
Okay. So as Jared kind of cleans the party up, everyone packing up, Adam making sure the horses and the gear is all back in the wagon, you guys begin up the road, the final stretch to Dragoncliff Mines, and realistically, like, if there was no terrain involved, you're maybe like an hour away from Dragoncliff Mines, but due to the steep, zigzagging pathway that leads up to this town, what would be about an hour is going to take almost half a day to really get up to. It's a rather arduous journey, and that's what kind of Adam suggested, taking it on in the morning versus trying to do it last night. So you're going to just, gradually make your way higher and higher up elevation, feeling the temperature kind of dropping ever so slightly the higher you climb, but again kind of seeing the familiar sights that you've all seen at this point besides Valorant. Looking, back towards where you had traveled, you eventually kind of get high enough on this little valley plateau area that Dragoncliff Mines is actually set in to look over kind of the overall terrain that you traveled over the past couple days. Very distantly in the far reaches of your sight, being able to see kind of the small outline of Kraylin on the coast where you'd originally begun your adventure. But finally, you kind of reach towards the kind of outlying edges of Dragoncliff Mines, where previously, when you were last here, you had seen, boarded up homes and windows and buildings that were kind of left to just rot in place with no occupants inside of them. You see that the majority of the town has kind of been brought back to life. Most of the buildings that were discarded previously have been reoccupied or found a new purpose, giving the approach kind of a more lively feel than the last time you had visited. But eventually you do get up the last little hump or ramp, more or less, to get to the main square of the town. The big great hall with a small platform outside of it there. The, various areas you had seen, the kind of weeping townswomen last time, now cleaned up and devoid of weeping townswomen this time. Off in the far north, as you look past the town and farther up the mountain, you see the kind of less meandering road that leads up to the mines where you had delved deep all those months ago. But as you begin to approach, people who are, sitting outside on their porches or going about their daily routine, at this point being closer to noon, you hear like whispering, and a few people are kind of like pointing, and like, you hear just various little tidbits of conversation here and there, like, oh, that's them. They saved the town. Like, that's Jarek. That's Thor.
I would like to be playing Ballad of Jeremy as loudly as possible as we
I imagine so.
get up in there.
Okay. So yeah, more or less, that's kind of the approach until you find yourselves in the actual town square of Dragoncliff Mines.
Do we see either Jeremy or the guard guy that we met?
No, you recognize a few of the faces of the men that you saved or the women you had interacted with previously, but you do not see Jeremy or Benny.
Okay.
Valoran, you're in for a real treat. We saved this place a while back, and hopefully they remember that.
That would be a nice change of pace.
I almost forgot to mention one thing. In the actual center of the kind of rough town center that there is a newly constructed statue. It's, devoid of, the weathering that you would normally see with statues that have stood the test of time. This one having just freshly kind of been finished off. And it pictures the likeness of Mayor Hillthorn, the late Mayor Hillthorn, kind of stood proud, arms kind of crossed across his chest as he's looking up, chin lifted towards the sky valiantly, as kind of half-size mini figures behind him that vaguely represent your party from that time period, including Calliope and Hayes, are all kind of gathered behind him, kind of in the position of assuming, like, taking leadership from him. And that is, what you find in the town square, more or less. This nice, very well done, but the faces and whatnot aren't quite exact due to, having to be told, secondhand what people looked like. But it's easy to recognize who's who on the statue.
JD, I understand that you may want to shatter Hillthorn. Don't do it.
Thor, I don't want to hear it. That is... And just for posterity's sake, does it have any spots that look like it might be weak, where something could break it? Maybe in the leg area.
Yeah, I mean, probably the ankles is the smallest part of the statue.
I'm gonna scribble that down in my journal and snap it shut.
Okay. But yes, which direction is the party heading at this point?
I imagine we'd ask around, see if we find anybody we knew. Be like, where's Jeremy at? Where's the old lady? Do we see her?
You do not see her.
Probably died.
So, if you ask around, besides the kind of like, oh my god, you're back, conversation that you would have with basically anyone you interacted with, they would quickly say that you need to find Jeremy. He's more or less in the Great Hall for the majority of his day. So yeah, that's basically the information you would gather.
So to the Great Hall then? To the Great Hall!
Okay.
Lead the way,
So-
Thor.
The party make their way to the familiar Great Hall, where previously they had seen the late Mayor Hillthorn kind of addressing the somber crowd on their initial travels here, and kind of stepping up and through the door, which seems to be kind of a public access door, more or less. You are brought back into it. It vaguely resembles the Great Hall in Corel. Again, kind of that like trough-like fire pit that runs the length of it, before at the end of it having that raised kind of throne-esque area that you had seen Mayor Hillthorn use last time. This time, though, you distinctly see the kind of more elegant than necessary throne that he had there previously has been removed, and instead there is like a small table with, you know, simple wooden chairs kind of pulled up around it, the few doors on the main floor leading off in different directions, and some stairs on the west and eastern side leading up to different second story levels. But as you all kind of come in, you see coming out of the door to your left, walking while reading a few bits of parchment in his hand, using a cane in his right, is the familiar Jeremy Goldenheart that you had seen last time. Not quite noticing your presence as he's kind of trudging towards the table at the end of the hall.
Looking good, Jeremy.
As you call out, you see him kind of whip around, and he distinctly has a limp that he's kind of favoring, using the cane to kind of shift as much weight off as he can. He like looks around, and what was a tired face, you know, probably weighed down by the various responsibilities that he wields, quickly lifts. You see his smile kind of growing and his eyes kind of soften as he looks up at you and then like looks past you at the various party members entering in, and he like raises the hand that's holding the parchments, like almost in like a hugging like gesture, be like, You've returned. Well, welcome back. Wow, it's been quite some time. I didn't know if you would return. And he begins to kind of like diligently making his way over to you guys.
I thought we fixed that, Jeremy. What happened to your leg?
Oh, well, apparently some injuries can't be fully whisked away by your magic, but it's good enough that I can manage. Much better than the crutches I used to wield. Well, wow, it has been quite some time. Who is the new companion?
Yes, let us introduce you. This is the newest member of our company, Lord Valorant Ethelvane from Folk.
Kind of looks mildly surprised about seeing a part of nobility from Folk and nods his head down towards you. Well, if you are a friend of the Rolling Stones, then you are a friend of mine, Lord Valorant. I welcome you to Dragoncliff Mines.
Where are the Golden Hearts now?
You see distinctly Jeremy's eyes flick to Rolly and then immediately flick to Jarek, and you see this kind of like, he goes, I was curious where my new nickname came from.
Have you not heard the song?
Oh, I've heard the song, Jarek.
Yeah, well, you know, we figured best way for you to not be killed off by the nobility was to ensure that you were seemed a hero.
You see him kind of like shaking his head, you know, dropping the papers on like a nearby small table near the door before he reaches up and kind of like rubs at his brow ever so slightly. Jarek, I appreciate the craftsmanship and the gold behind it, but there were a few embellishments with that ballad. Would you agree?
You know, it's there's a bit of artistic license, I'm sure you would understand, whenever it comes to creating art. And he'll just kind of give a disgruntled look back towards the town square. But you know, I think that it definitely did its job, and look at you now, Mayor. When does that ever happen?
Well, from what I hear from my friend Croak, it happens quite often amongst us, Mayor Jarek.
Oh, that old thing. No, it's new. It's nothing major.
Well, Jarek, I would just like to simply put forth that trying to maintain an air of honor and trustworthiness is difficult when tales are being told of my non-existent valor.
Jeremy, you led us down into the mines that were surely going to be a death trap for us, and without your help, we certainly would have died. Don't put don't put yourself down like that. You're very brave, especially considering you were not in the best of condition at the time.
He just shakes his head. He's like, all right, Jarek, all right. Well, it seems that despite my best efforts, you arrive yet again as Dragoncliff Mines finds itself in another crisis, and I do not want to impose anything upon you, the Golden Hearts. But if you are willing and able, and time allows it, your assistance would be greatly appreciated yet again.
Is it with this guy?
You hold up the wanted poster and he looks down at it, and you see the kind of smile that was on his face kind of fading ever so slightly, that tiredness kind of coming over again, kind of nodding his head. Yes, that would be the source of our difficulties, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Yeah, it's something I want.
Well, then I shall not stand in the way of your determination, Thor. I have been informed that you've met our captain of the guard, Benny. He met you upon the road up here, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, where'd you find that guy? He's creepy.
Yeah, is he just a possessed suit of armor? Because that would kind of fit with what we've been dealing with recently.
Yeah, what's up with the face thing?
Benny's personal issues are his own. I will not disclose anything that he wants to keep secret, to honor whatever privacy he still wields. He's more or less open about it if you do want to approach him, but simply put, he came to us and we needed more security, and almost as the fates had decided before me, we hired him just before the Knoll attacks began to really ramp up. So, seemingly, he has come here with a purpose, and he's been serving it to the best of his abilities.
Knoll attacks. Is that what this guy is up with? Is that who he's teaming up with now?
That appears to be the majority of his force, more or less. It's really the only creatures we've seen on the borders of Dragoncliff Mines. All the other reports have said that the leadership of this group, I guess you can say, is still up at the fort, and don't seem to leave all that often.
And,
have you...
Go ahead.
Valorant, have you ever dealt with gnolls before?
How about a history roll? What do you think?
You could history roll. It would mainly be for general knowledge, because I don't think you would have personally interacted with them. Okay. So what you would know about gnolls, again, a lot of these creatures having been more or less part of society before the Great Entrance and now being kind of exiled into Aether, the knowledge you know about them from that point onwards is they are kind of like the henchmen, more or less, of the bigger players in Aether. They act as foot soldiers and kind of cannon fodder. They're quick to breed and numerous, almost like you would imagine orcs and goblins as a threat. One alone in the wilderness isn't a big deal, but 10 or 20 in a group could serve a pretty potentially big threat to any sort of adventurer or grouping. They're nasty, they're primal, they're not very intelligent, they prefer to only pick fights that they know they win, that kind of general feeling.
So Valorant answers that no personal experience, but I do not find it surprising they would gravitate toward a strong and ruthless leadership.
Yeah, they once threw a boulder at me. That was pretty fun. Were those gnolls or kobolds?
Those are kobolds.
I don't know.
No, Thor, that was... you just kind of ran right into that thing.
I didn't know they had a boulder at the end of the tunnel.
Well, Golden Hearts, as much as I would love to sit here and chat back and forth with you, there are very prominent matters that I need to attend to, especially since each night seems to bring another wave of ilk down the mountain pass. So, unless there's any immediate situations that need my attention, I must go deal with other things.
Before you go, how's the ex-mayor's mother doing?
Well, Gretchen, after the loss of her son, seemed to lose some of the light in her life, and she passed a few days after you left. We buried her down in the clearing where Mayor Hillthorn lost his life. We set up a nice little remembrance spot for her and her son, so, but she is remembered within the town.
Well done, Jeremy. Sad, but well done.
I really liked her. She was super nice.
She was very nice, and for the few days she was with us after your disappearance or your departure, she was very helpful in trying to facilitate the town getting back up on its feet. So, for what it's worth, I deeply do appreciate her intentions and her general feel around the town, and it is missed.
Well, on a semi-brighter note, these gnolls, how many of them, like, is it more come each time, or how many?
I would ask Benny any of those types of questions. I more or less am held up here in the Great Hall. I actually haven't even seen one since their attacks. Benny he takes care of that.
Okay. I told you we had to go to Benny.
Jeremy, we must have some drinks later on.
Yes, certainly. There is a new tavern that it isn't quite open, but it is in the process of being brought to the public. You can stop by there, and if you need anything, I'm sure they will move things around to facilitate any sort of drink or meals that you may need. And of course, anything that you need while you're here is simply on the house. I will not have anybody charging any member of your party while you are here in Dragoncliff Mines.
Oh, that's very nice.
I'll look over at Rolly and be like, drinking contest, Rolly?
If there's sufficient stores, maybe we'll have a couple rounds, but maybe we'll defer that until we've taken care of the problem. Mayor Jeremy.
Jeremy kind of nodding to Rolly like, I would appreciate the drinking. Wait until after victory is secured.
Yes, yeah, right, of course, yeah.
Alright, so where do we find the white guy?
Benny.
Yes.
Benny White. Yep.
He will be up in the northeast. There's a mountain pass that the soldiers used to use to get up to the fort. It's been long forgotten, but now it apparently facilitates the gnolls having an entrance into our little valley. So that is where he posts up every night and waits for any sort of prodding they may have for us.
Is everybody good to head there?
Lead the way.
Would I be familiar with this?
The pass is viewable like from the town center. Like it's not too far off. It's basically almost in the town more or less. So you could easily like leave the Great Hall and kind of see it and head towards it.
Okay. To Benny White. We will see you later, Mayor Jeremy.
Keep me informed, and I again truly appreciate your timely arrival and assistance. I will try to make it less of a habit to require saving whenever you find yourself at Dragoncliff Mines.
Our pleasure, Jeremy.
Try to make it less of a job every time we come here, you know.
Next time we'll have a festival and not the job, so you can truly appreciate the appreciation that we have for you here at Dragoncliff Mines.
Oh, and just a small moment. Whoever commissioned that artwork with the former mayor, I noticed my likeness. The beard is it's a bit too long. I only wear it to here, as you can see, and
as you bring up the statue, you see Jeremy's eyes roll like dramatically in his head. He goes, "That thing has been the biggest nuisance that the town saw fit to remember your party, more or less. They wanted to put me up on the statue. I first had to talk them into putting the mayor up there, and then they would not cease on making it this extravagant expense. We did not, but Rolly, I will hunt down a new mason and have it modified to fit your likeness better. If
it was a joke, son. Just quite nice touch.
Well, money could have been better served somewhere else, but if it helps the town take pride in where they live, I guess I can't stop them."
Well, then we should be off.
Yes. To Benny White.
Good luck, Golden Hearts, and welcome back.
Good luck, Golden Heart.
Try not to get too much gray hair out here.
So you guys depart the Great Hall back into the town square and then head up towards the Northeast Pass?
Yes.
When they get back outside, Valoran gives Thor a signal whistle and says, "I forgot this yesterday."
What?
It's yours. It's a whistle. Everyone else got one. I don't want to leave you out.
What do I need to whistle?
Watch, it does this, Thor.
You hear a pretty loud, high-pitched, noticeable sound coming from the whistle of Rolly, filling the town.
Ow. Okay, but why?
Do whatever you want with it.
Just for clarification purposes, did Buffy join us in the entrance?
Buffy did not climb up the zigzag path. As soon as you started kind of heading closer to Dragoncliff Mines, he fucked off.
As he usually does.
Yeah. But he does stay in the camp with you overnight, which is a new occurrence.
Okay. Thank you, Lord Valoran, for this nice whistle. Does it have like a thing to wear around your neck, or?
It's ring, yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna loop it around my wrist, I guess.
Okay.
As we head to the fort, Valoran's gonna take up the rear of the group and look for somebody that's smoking.
Okay. So as you're heading towards the pass, you're basically near the edge of town at this point, really only having to go like maybe a quarter of a mile to kind of reach the beginning of the pass where it meets the valley. Give me perception real quick, Valoran. But okay. With the lack of people that you're going to pass by, you don't quite notice anybody that's smoking as you're going there.
Okay, I'm going to keep looking.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah. So the pass itself, you see, again, it's where two of the bigger mountainous forms around the town kind of meet. The little valley kind of twisting its way down towards the town. Various kind of cliffs and rock formations and small plateaus kind of jutting out of the mountain itself. But the main route or road that kind of fills the mountain pass is maybe about like 15 feet wide to like 10 feet wide, kind of varying in the gap that it allows as it kind of goes up into the more foggy, cloudy, kind of obscured part of the mountain that you can't quite see. But as you reach the kind of entrance, the kind of base of it, you see that various kind of haphazard defenses have been set up. Broken furnitures and dresses and tables, bits of plank and wood and sandbags have all kind of been set on the various like little standing or sitting areas, like the raised elevation and the lower elevation and the road itself, all kind of have like crudely constructed defenses built upon them. There's like ladders and stairs kind of spread out here and there to allow getting up to the more height advantage areas. But you see Benny, the man that you had met on the road last night, is sat up on one of the kind of higher spots, kind of just glancing straight forward into the gap, not moving a muscle as he just kind of sat upright, staring towards the entrance to the town.
Good morning, Mr. Whiteflower.
As you call out, you see his head just like snap around to you again with that almost like unnatural, abrupt movement, kind of locking with you. Well, travelers, I see you are here. Welcome. What business do you have at the pass?
I'm here to kill this guy.
You see him look down at the paper and look back up at you. He goes, "We are of a similar purpose, you and I."
Yeah? Does he have something you want?
He is putting in jeopardy the lives of this town, so it is my job to dispose of him.
Okay. As long as we're not going after him for the same purpose.
Thank you for that, by the way. These are good people, and it is appreciated you keeping them safe.
For the brief interactions that I have had with the populace, they have seemed agreeable, so I would like to facilitate their longevity as much as possible.
You know, there's easier ways to say that, right?
I apologize for my odd demeanor. It has been pointed out to me before. It comes from a strange way of learning your language that most have not.
You mean your language?
Well, I do not speak the common tongue of your people. Well, I do now, but I did not previously.
What were you? What are you? What did you speak?
Where all of his replies have kind of been this like curt, immediate response. As you ask these questions, you get a small moment of silence. As again, he's still not moving a muscle. I'm imagining you guys are kind of approaching up towards him and not like standing, 80 feet away or whatever. So you guys are kind of like now amongst the defenses more or less as you're conversing with him. But eventually he does come back. I will answer these questions for you, as long as I am made aware that your ill intentions toward different races is reasonable.
What does that even mean?
I'll just look down the rolly, look back at myself. I'm good.
What do his feet look like? Man,
they're covered by boots. Yeah. What are you looking for?
Just shaped like feet.
They are definitely wider at the toes than a human's would be. Like almost looking like water flippers, that kind of shape, not that size, but it doesn't look like a human-shaped foot.
So his tone is a questioning tone, but Valoran kind of looks at his boots and then cocks his head and says, "Are you one of the beast race?"
I do not find myself as brethren with that particular ilk. I was a hobgoblin in a previous life.
Make yourself comfortable, then, by all means. I can assure you the Golden Hearts are not interested.
Yeah, I don't care.
Is that the title that your group holds, the Golden Hearts?
Indeed it is.
Well, you all appear to be variously capable of combat. Do you find yourself here to assist in the patrols that have been harassing Dragoncliff Mines?
Ideally, we would get rid of the problem entirely.
Yeah.
That is the goal, and I have a plan. And maybe with the numbers that you provide, we can put that plan into motion. But if we do not eliminate the immediate threat for Dragoncliff Mines, then we are simply leaving them to be butchered as we pursue the major threat.
Question for you, Benny. As soon as the threat is removed, will you stay here, or are you going to depart?
My path in life pulls me in various ways, and I seemingly have found myself here at this time to deal with this problem for these people. Staying after this or moving on, well, I will determine once I reach that stage.
Fair enough.
So
shall I explain to you my plan?
Yes, that is what I was going to say.
So to give you a little bit more context, there is one of the houses of the town, or one of the structures more or less, I don't quite know if it's a house or not, is like right at the entrance of the kind of pass that you're at, almost kind of like blocking the road a little bit, but still kind of facilitating maybe like a wagon or a cart being able to get around it. There have been defenses kind of built on top of the thatch roof that it has to be used as like an advantage point as well, but it is a nice structure to kind of allow to like hide behind if there is something up in the pass. So Benny kind of turns his attention to the structure, kind of nodding his head down towards it. The beastly gnolls do not like to commit to a fight unless they know that it is in their favor, and that is why they harass us from afar with arrows and twigs that pierce our flesh. The compatriots that I had from Dragoncliff Mines have found themselves wounded and disposed of at the current moment. So the gnolls probably think that their advantage is rapidly growing upon us, and their move to take the city will probably happen sooner rather than later. My plan, more or less, is to make our defenses appear non-existent, and then have a second force ready in ambush as the gnolls commit to an all-out assault. That way they cannot flee and pepper us from a distance.
And that's why you have broken bits of furniture masquerading as defenses, I see.
Well, most combatants do not like finding themselves harassed by various projectiles, so the defenses were necessary.
Well, there's quite a few. These are meant to be functional. There's quite a few things we can do to improve them.
Just for a quick note, you do see that like all of the defenses are littered with arrows kind of sticking into them, poking out at like various kind of haphazard angles. So they've done something more or less, but there is a rather large amount of projectiles in the defenses still stuck there.
Benny, what kind of numbers are we looking at here?
It's hard to get a number of combatants on the opposing side. They tend to move quickly, scurrying around, keeping their distance, hiding within the fog. But based on the amount of projectiles coming our way, my calculations tend towards 10 or so that are sent to harass us and judge our defenses. I do not know if those numbers grow or shrink with each passing night, but that is what I have gathered thus far.
Are you planning on drawing them in and fighting them within the barricade?
What I want to attempt is feigning my own demise in the pass. They seem to recognize me when I am at my post, and when I am, they do not grow closer than necessary. So if they think that I have fallen and that the defenses are unmanned, then they shall rush forward, and that is when we will take them at the structure at the base of the pass.
So we kind of trap them in from behind. Yes?
I do not want them getting past us, because then they can retreat into the populace and cause havoc. but I do want to engage with them at a reasonable distance so they do not have the chance to retreat if that is what they would intend to do.
I presume the village has a butcher of some kind.
I do not catch your meaning.
We'll fill a water skin or two with blood. That should sell the illusion.
I am quite the actor, sir.
Clearly.
So is this an agreement of my plan?
I'm here for it. Lead the way, Benny White.
My name is Whiteflower, sir. I do not see any reason to postpone our plan, so tonight would probably be the best time to facilitate beginning it.
Quick question for you, Nathan. With prestidigitation, I can soil things, and I think previously I'd used it to soil myself with oil or grease or something. Would it be within reason to soil things with blood?
Can you soil with grease? Do you have the right above it, so we can just glance over it again? Because I think there's a grease spell, and I imagine if there's a grease spell, you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, there is one. It doesn't specify, I believe.
It says clean or soil an object. I think soil, the intention of it is just to make it appear dirty, dingy, scuffed up, covered in dirt or mud. I don't know if we can stretch it as far as like grease or blood or things of that nature. That might be getting into like minor illusion territory. So.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's any business you need to attend to before the nighttime falls, I will be here at my post, awaiting to enact our plan.
So, as best as I can gather, then, is there a choke point that he's trying to bring?
Here, we'll go ahead and do this real quick. So this is the area that you guys find yourselves in currently. Kind of going over the various things I described. There's Benny up here at the defenses. This is the structure that he is referring to. More or less, the position you guys are in now is where he would kind of have you guys hide as he draws them in closer, and then you would rush from the structure and fight the opponents in the pass. That is more or less the plan he is putting forth.
So they would be approaching from this direction.
Yeah, that is higher up in the mountains.
Okay, and then these are all tiers of...
Yeah, like between... the like landing area and below is usually about 10 or 15 feet with these particular cliffs. So just keep that in mind that like each drop is like a 10 or 15 foot rocky cliffside.
Guys, just looking at this, I don't know how much help I'm going to be on the ground, but if I can get up a little higher, I might be able to assist a little bit better. Either up from the cliff sides or the mountain sides, or even possibly from the top of the house.
Yeah, just keep in mind you have to be able to see them. So, like, I think if I'm going to be, down in the dirty, I should probably have some form of light on me so I can see and everybody else can see what's going on around me at least.
Did we, was it a thing previously? Do I remember securing a lantern to oneself?
Yes, there's Marcus's lantern, which I imagine would be in the wagon. You can secure it at your hip, and it would produce less light than, like, pointing it, but still functional.
And Pocket Sun gives a range of 60 feet?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 60 bright, 60 dim, right?
Yeah, so it's 120 feet of total light.
Okay. So let's just
It's like the whole map almost.
Yeah.
Is there any guarantee they're going to attack at night?
So you should ask Benny that.
Is there any guarantee they're going to attack at night?
Well, every night they either test our defenses or they try and push forward, so I imagine that this night will be no different.
Are you planning on fighting them and pretending to die, or did you want them to see you be killed by someone?
Well, generally they begin their assault by peppering us with projectiles, so I shall catch one with my body, and then I shall fall.
Question, do they always go through the bottom part, or do they go on all the levels?
Like the beasts they are, they seem to crawl amongst the entire cliffside, up and down, using the various bits of rock to their advantage.
Okay. So just keep in mind, JD, you will have people that'll probably be on your level, no matter where you are.
Then I shall stick to the house.
Where? Sorry, I wasn't here for this. Where's the house on here?
That's the thatch roof at the bottom of the map, the kind of tan-looking roof.
Oh, this thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could be up here if you wanted to. That may give you some cover, because, squishy and all. Because I imagine Lord Valorant and I are going to be probably the ones that are keeping them from fleeing. And then...
Well, I shall be behind them as they run past my fallen body to reach you, so we shall have some form of imposing no retreat on them.
Okay.
Benny, just curious from what you've seen of them, is it at all possible they may try to hack at your supposedly dead body just...
They will try to eat my flesh, yes, sir.
Okay, alright. Well, shit.
Well, I think we shall leave exact planning for tonight when we actually facilitate our plan. For now, I imagine your kind need to eat, rest, prepare various stages before a battle ensues.
Yeah, we can go get some...
That would be nice.
Go get some food, maybe a little rest. Short one.
I think it is vital once we have them on the back foot that we pursue them up the mountain so that they may not bring back information or plan for our assault. We shall keep them pressed.
And how far away is the fort from here?
Benny, I guess, honestly wouldn't know this. But as far as you guys are aware, as like general knowledge, it's about a day, maybe a day and a half. Kind of depends on like how you're getting there and what you're using. But it's a distance. It's not like over the hill.
Okay, so I was just making sure, like, if we chase them down, they're not going to go into the castle, and then we're going to be into the next assault.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can see where my token's at. I can position up here on top of the roof, right?
Yeah. There's a ladder there. So as far as combat's concerned, ladder is difficult terrain. So climbing up a ladder takes like 10 feet where it would normally take 5. But then you can climb up and down them, that kind of thing.
Okay, how tall is the building? Can you just jump off of it?
Yeah, you could jump off of it. Maybe I'd have you roll like athletics or an acrobatics so you don't, fall on your face. But it's not like a 40-foot building. It's like a 10, 15-foot.
Okay.
Careful though, you can fall on your face.
While we're up here, I think Jarek would try and scout around on the sides to see if there's any opportunities where he could shatter the rocks and cause a falling of boulders. I'm not looking to like make a rock slide, but enough to just dislodge extra projectiles.
Okay, give me investigation for that then. So Rolly, having been the one who engages in the most like questions with Benny, he's gonna turn his attention to you, Rolly, and be like, "I do have information as far as the fort is concerned from the fleeing man that what's the word? Garrisoned it before. So if we want to go over what we shall do when we get there, I do have information for that as well."
Well, yes, now would be a good time for that.
Well, is this a conversation we should have with all your compatriots, or should we have it one-on-one?
No, all would be better.
Okay. So Jarek, as you're kind of moving around, kind of just getting a general feel for the, various maybe potentially movable rocks, I'll go ahead and mark them for you. We'll say this one and this one could reasonably be moved with either shatter or mage hand or some sort of force or a barrel. Whatever force you use to move it potentially could be moved.
Okay.
But upon Rolly's answer, he would kind of just wait to see if everyone gathers back around to have the next part of the conversation. So as you all kind of gather around, Benny moving his attention back up to the pass as he's kind of waiting, but once you've all sat and gathered, he kind of turns back to you guys, looking around you one more time before beginning to speak again. Well, the man that fled from the fort, before his death, he tried to pass along any sort of knowledge that he wielded. The main point that I think is worth discussing, there is a secondary entrance to the fort that leads into the cellar beneath it that is behind a waterfall, more or less. I do not know what those are, but I imagine that it is where water falls from the sky, maybe potentially as a thunderstorm passes. But the waterfall, he says, has been frozen, the past springs not reaching up the top of the mountain and thawing it, so getting past that might require some difficulty, but I do know how to open the hidden entrance with the tools that he gave me and the knowledge that he passed on, so that is a point of attack that we can wield. Otherwise, we can simply assault the fort as any force would, but the built-in defenses of the fort would prove difficult for some of us.
Yeah, I think Oh, go ahead.
Are you familiar with what a river is, Benny?
A river is water flowing in a direction.
Yes, and when a water flows off of a mountain or a cliff, it falls. It's a waterfall.
Ah, noted.
So that will be roughly what we're looking for.
A vertical river.
Yes. Whatever that means. So I think probably the not straight assault is our best option by far.
I agree.
Agreed.
And do you think we should probably just pursue immediately afterwards so that we can try to catch any suspicion of their party dying off guard, so maybe they're not,
If I know the beast that we are hunting, it is vital to keep the pressure on them. If they are afraid that a sizable force is coming their direction to remove them from the fortification, then they shall hunker down and wait, versus trying to facilitate any sort of revenge for the loss of their ilk down here in the pass.
I have a terrific idea. Once they're routed and we're chasing them, let's all blow our whistles as we're running after them.
Is this what the whistles are for?
It can be.
I still don't know what these are for.
Would I have ever heard of anything about kobolds?
Kobolds?
Yeah, that's
Gnolls?
Knowles.
Gnolls having sensitive hearing.
Yeah, so they're more or less, they are a hyena-human hybrid. So smell, hearing are kind of like heightened for them. Their sight is more or less kind of their weak spot. But that's what you roughly would know about their capabilities.
Another thing I thought maybe I should mention is, why don't we hide that son of yours, Jeremy, and when they pass it, you can pull the cloth off with a mage hand or something. Blind them.
Yeah,
Not
that's
a bad
idea.
idea. Then we'll also be able to see them too. Should we put that down somewhere over like here-ish?
Well, if I'm up on the roof of the building and I unleash it while y'all are in front of the building, they'll be having to look up into the light in order to fight you.
It's also fair. It's like when you play, what is that game? Hashtag, and the sun's in your eyes, so you can't really throw very well. It's rough.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Well, I see it is near impossible keeping your minds from the battle at hand. So, I guess we shall plan on what we shall do next.
I mean, it's better to be prepared than not prepared.
It's best to find
Any of
yourself always preparing.
It's not planning to plan, it's planning to fail, my grandmother used to say.
Your wisdom is astounding.
So I want to see your plan in action. I just really want to see how you plan to fall down and pretend to die.
If that will facilitate helping you envision the plan, then I shall do so. So you see him abruptly stand up from his chair, and he has like two kind of crudely fashioned blades on his back, kind of, strapped on either side. And so he draws them both from his back, kind of wielding them as he would in combat, kind of getting a more like ready stance versus just standing upright. And so he stood there, and again, you can notice that he's not like moving or breathing. He's just kind of like a statue, just stood there wielding the weapons, and he's like staring up into the distance, and he like freezes for a few moments. And then suddenly he just like falls backwards. You hear this clattering of the armor. He like dramatically throws his weapons up into the air, them clattering on the various defenses around him. He tips the chair that he was sitting in over, and he kind of lands like face first on the ground, kind of sprawled out. He goes, "I am dead."
Okay, are you gonna say that?
No, I will not say that, sir.
Okay, I'm just making sure, because that would really not sell it.
I'm going to get a water skin and fill it with blood, and you should spill it when you do this. It can't make it worse.
Whatever multiplies my talents, I think, is a good idea.
How did it look, though? Did it look very like?
It was very stage kid, like theater kid, like overacting for like a group of friends.
Okay.
Fair, they're gnolls, so just might work.
So, as you guys depart from the kind of valley entrance path back into the town, kind of going around looking for various things, Rolly kind of spearheading the operation, collecting what we need, or what the party needs, and then passing it on to Adam more or less so that he can help facilitate as the quartermaster. Moving around the town, checking with a few different places, you are able to find all the various items that you are looking for. Jarek, a little bit of lantern oil. Thor, you are given one simple healing potion that someone can spare. And then Valoran, you are given, it's a very rough quiver. More or less, it was kind of just like leftover leather that was quickly bound into a shape that you can reasonably use. And then I forgot what the last thing was. The water skins full of blood, yes, which you can also acquire. So you guys have all kind of gathered the items you need.
Does Adam have a golden heart whistle as well?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
He
I
does?
gave him one.
Okay, then he does. Sorry, I couldn't remember
Everybody got
if
one.
you had. Okay.
So, yeah, I'd like to bring Adam into the fold too, and have him be like kind of a beater on the edges. So, like, if he sees any gnolls starting to stray off, as we're chasing them, to whistle to scare them.
Okay.
I can roleplay that if we need to, but
no, that's fine.
okay.
Well, this will be Adam for now, if I can. Oh, there we go. Boink. Okay.
It's kind of a blank spot in the handbook for some reason. A mundane quiver does not have a number of javelins listed that it can hold. How do you feel about half a dozen?
I think that's fine. You have to forego some, reality as far as like ammunition, equipment, and whatnot. So having a quiver and whatnot, having the javelins on you, I think is reasonable enough. So.
And how much oil did you say I was able to get?
What is the unit of measurement that D&D uses?
Flask of oil is a pint.
Okay. What is the... This is not what I'm looking for. What is the value of that? I can't find it real quick.
Plain flask of oil is 1 silver.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that you can more or less find 2 pints, or be given 2 pints of lantern oil for you to use.
How much of a fire would that start? 2x2 square or single square?
Probably
square area.
Yeah, so you could probably do 2 5-foot square areas, and it's more like the length of the fire versus the area it covers, because it has a fuel source to kind of burn off of.
Okay.
So is there any other things you guys want to address before nighttime rolls around? Any questions, things you need to ask, people you want to check in on?
I want to give Benny acting lessons.
Okay.
Not a bad point, actually.
Vinny, have you seen a man die before from an arrow?
Yes, I have seen many fall in my time.
Yes, and when they fall, it's almost like they're a puppet with the strings cut. They don't flop around like a fish. They just die.
That is what I am recreating, yes.
So why don't we try that with less feeling?
Well, here, let me show you what normally happens to me in battle.
So here, I'm a gnoll. Here's my bow. Thunk. Now die, Jarek. Show him how it's done. See? Simple.
He kind of looks between you two, and then kind of nods at Rolly. He's like, "All right, shoot me." He kind of looks over at Jarek, and the slowest movement he has done up to this point that you've seen. He kind of lifts his hands up, not quite knowing what to do with them, just kind of holding them in front of his chest. And he goes, "Oh,
I think that got worse.
Hey, Seth, I'm going to have to ask you not to do this with the top of your head. It's very distracting at this point.
So let me just put my computer up.
But yeah, so Benny's acting skills seem to be at their best currently, unless he takes very arduous, routine acting lessons.
Oh man. Okay. All right. I think this is going to be the best we got.
Well, I am a fantastic actor, so have faith.
Really, I swear to God, please start praying.
Already been occurring.
JD, I think you mean I swear to dog.
No, don't say his name, he'll start looking at me.
He's always looking at you. I mean, you have an eye on your stomach.
Yeah, but I keep it full of lit.
Can I go? Is Jarek's belly readily accessible?
Yeah, I think we've determined that there's like a hole in your tunic that has been like caused by the various things coming out of it. So
kind of being short anyway, I'm gonna walk over to his belly button and look in there. Are you ready there, dog? And poke it.
You would see. Yes.
I'm just gonna go ahead and let out a loud fart at that.
I love it. The sake of Dragoncliff Mines is in the hands of these glorious heroes. But as you are looking at the tattoo and kind of speaking to it, you see its kind of dark black coloration that it has, kind of lightening and then maybe shifting to a very dark blue color.
I think he's happy.
Stop talking to him. Jesus, Roland.
Well, I see that we are in good hands with this plan.
I would like to try and hide myself under the thatch, pull some of the hay off and cover myself while I'm up on the roof. Right. No, that's not there. Right, there.
So you want to be on the roof the entire time, but kind of covered up with thatch?
To begin with, yes, and if I need to move from there, I'll do so, but that's how I'd like to start.
Okay, just to kind of give you some benefit, hiding on the other side of the peak of the roof would kind of obscure you generally anyway, if you wanted to hide behind that as well, versus on the front that's facing the pass.
Exactly.
Yes.
So is the plan for What's His Toes to be down here? He dies, they all come charging in, and then we make a wall here. He makes a wall here, and he's the only thing between them and fleeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's gonna be up on here on the little.
No, he's gonna be here.
Yeah, he's gonna be right down there.
Wow, he's got some stones. Okay.
So do you want me to be with him, here, just hidden?
Well, it's up to you guys.
Could we pile debris, around there and there? They could hide under?
Oh, I got a great idea. You guys ever watch Red Dawn?
Mm-hmm.
The original?
Mm-hmm.
You could dig holes, and then as they run past, you could pop out of the holes.
Don't know how functional that would be in a rocky, snowy tundra, but
I was just gonna say I could hide here with no light, or with the sunlight, or I guess you would have the sunlight. And
pretty sure gnolls have dark vision though, so you're not really concealed by no light.
And I'll reinstate, because it seemed to have passed by acknowledgement, that their main perception is hearing and smelling. So being visually out of sight is only kind of one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and you probably stink, Thor. I'm just saying.
True.
You got a bigger butt than most people.
I have a bear.
Well, no, I prestidigitated us, so we're fresh as daisies.
That would also smell.
That's still a smell, yeah.
Alright, never mind. I'll just hang back then.
Here, well, I'm going to implement something that we talked about last night and see how it goes. It is roughly 2:20 right now. By 2:25, no, 2:24, maybe 4 minutes, I want all the planning of what might happen done. So you have 4 minutes to come up with your plan.
Our plan fails before it begins.
Okay. So, as the daylight begins to kind of fade, the afternoon setting in, you all kind of discussing the various things that might occur. Benny kind of just like nodding along and listening to the expertise that have come to defend Dragoncliff Mines. After everybody is kind of in place, in position, the night finally kind of descending upon you, Benny kind of takes his place in the middle of the pass, kind of like just past the defenses he had kind of mounted, standing again like a statue, unmoving, unwavering, just standing, staring straight forth. You see that he has put away his swords and has instead donned this kind of simplistic longbow that he had kind of set on some of the defenses previously. So everybody is in position. The light of the world kind of begins to fade. You can ever so slightly hear like the din of the Dragoncliff Mines kind of reaching you through the air. Just, people laughing during like having an evening meal or like talking amongst each other, that kind of thing. As you were all kind of sat there in the silence, in the darkness, just kind of waiting it out, wondering when something might happen, you hear the distinct cackling howl of more or less this like hyena-like call, and it's very clear that it's being answered by more and more of its peers. The call being carried over and over again before it kind of comes this like symphony of like barking, crying into the night sky. It's a fair distance off, being carried mostly by the echoes of the mountainside or the mountain range that you are in, and kind of drifting down the pass that you are defending. Definitely not signaling that they're here, but signaling that they are nearby and potentially on their way. So you guys wait around for maybe another hour or two. Again, kind of crouched down, hidden under your thatch, eagerly kind of awaiting what might occur. And as, the silence drags on, you hear a twang and then you see an arrow kind of skitter across the ground beside Benny down on the pass. You see his face just kind of turning ever so slightly to look at it and then facing forward again. Right before you hear another twang, you see Benny kind of reaching with his free hand behind his back, grabbing a water skin that he had fixed to his belt, kind of just staring straight forward. And you see the arrow go flying through the air, and Benny shifts a little bit to the left, kind of anticipating its movement, as you see it go through his eye socket, into his helmet, and catch inside. And he throws himself back. You see him flinging the wineskin up into the air, big splay of red kind of filling the air, the like quick spread of like animal blood kind of filling your nose as it like comes down from the kind of cold, gusting wind that comes down the mountainside, kind of bringing it to you. And right as you smell the blood kind of hit your nose, you also smell like wet, dingy dog smell, that kind of thick animal odor that you've met various times in your life, that kind of filling the area around you as the whole mountain pass, like seemingly the whole mountain range fills with this loud, cackling hyena laugh as multiple footsteps and like pounding of the earth begin to fill the pass around you. So we are going to start some combat music, and we are going to okay, so let me quickly move these guys where they're going. There. Okay, so as you were all watching more or less from your different positions, those of you who have like sight of the pass, you see Benny collapse on the ground, arrows sticking out of his socket, the blood from the wine or the water skin kind of slowly seeping out into a puddle. You see almost a wall of animal flesh come pounding down the pass, like scuttering on the cliffs and the stones, seemingly not really deterred by the different cliffs and elevations, like leaping from one level to the next, kind of getting down on all fours and like pounding forward, jumping over things, using their claw to kind of scrape up and down rocks. It's like this kind of monstrous, beastly appearance of this like instinctual bloodlust. The hyenas just like, or the gnolls, racing down the pass towards you guys. They don't seem to care or think or be concerned in the slightest as they continue to storm forward. I imagine no one is acting at this point, right? Okay.
No.
Let's see how perceptive these boys are. Fantastic. That sounds about right. So as you are all waiting, ready to pounce, Thor, literally 10 feet in front of you, you see one of the gnolls jump up on the sandbags, taking just the slightest moment, kind of tossing his head back and forth, kind of like keeping his vision mostly trained on the town below, just past you, before he kind of like leaps off the sandbag down to here. The gnolls like variously beginning to approach up and down the pass, jumping up and down on top of things, moving over rocks, kicking, small bits of debris as they cluster. Eventually, two of them kind of set upon the body of Benny, like their claws already trying to like push him around, kind of pulling him apart, trying to get his armor off him so they can get to the human being on the inside. Is everyone still not acting at this point? Yes, no? Yes, no. Quick.
No.
No?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'll step out. If it looks like they're going to
We're
it
waiting
looks like they're gonna.
past him.
I mean, it looks like they're actually like gonna hurt the guy, right?
I mean, they are on top of him,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, boy, yeah. I'll try from my position. I'm gonna try and shoot a guiding bolt at one. Let me see.
Okay. Quickly, let's all roll initiative. The way mechanically that this round is going to work is right now all of the gnolls are being surprised. So more or less we get an entire round of you guys acting, a round by yourself to do what you wish, and then we'll roll through the actual initiative order. So you basically have a free round, and then you guys have shit initiative, because that's just how this party rolls. How this party knowles. Oh, let me add the turn order because I keep forgetting to do that. Rolly, you stepping out will kind of initiate the kind of.
Do I have line of sight on the gnolls without breaking my cover?
Yeah, I say you could. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm just gonna cast guiding bolt.
Okay, but you doing this initiates the surprise round. So you kind of acting will force everyone else to act, just so you're aware of that.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and guiding bolt the one north or east of him.
The one to the east.
Okay.
Okay, so that is a +8. 20. I imagine that might hit.
That is a hit, yes.
Okay. Ooh.
And so
Nice.
surprise round will follow initiative order more or less. So Daniel, you would be going after this during the surprise round. So just try and think of what you're going to be doing. 18. Okay. So let me make sure. Okay, yeah. So as the gnolls are storming forward, seemingly having no care for what's in front of them, having decided that their only threat has been taken care of, ready to finally surge down the valley and into Dragoncliff Mines to eat that tasty flesh. And so as they stop to kind of pounce on top of Benny, Rolly, feeling the need to defend him, kind of lets loose one of his guiding bolts, a blue flash of light shooting from his position down the valley and striking the gnoll right in the face as it was kind of like coming in for a bite, kind of sending its vision scattered to the side, leaving this kind of glowing blue residue on the side of its face, as all the other gnolls, seeing this flash of light, kind of stop and alert, kind of like skittering their feet across the ground, trying to stop their momentum, kind of like looking around in a panic. At this point, they all look around and more or less notice the immediate threats around them, like the one in front of you, Thor, has noticed you. The ones that saw Rolly have noticed him. I would say, Jarek, you're probably still concealed until you take your action, and same with Valoran. But more or less, they are surprised and kind of left flat-footed, not really quite knowing what to do as they're set upon by the party. So you dealt 18 damage to this guy?
Yeah.
So he takes a nice blow. Is there anything else you're doing?
Yeah, I'm going to run over here to take cover.
Okay.
Behind these sandbags.
Okay. So now Thor. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Alright. I am going to approach this gnoll. Rage.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that? Okay, so I'm going to rage, and then I'm going to hit him once with my rapier.
Okay. That is a hit.
13 damage.
Okay.
And then with my second attack, I'd like to try to shove him off of this cliff.
Okay. That's your athletics?
Yep.
Okay. So you come barreling out of your position with your rapier in hand. The gnoll quite not knowing what to do, what to handle. Like, he's holding his bow at this point, having prepared for, like, ranged combat, not ready for you to be physically there, and you jab him right in the chest, and you see your strike kind of landing a deep blow. He's letting out this like horrible kind of snarling, gasping sound. But right as you go to try and like surge forward and shove him off, he kind of starts batting away your hands, and then kind of almost like uses your own arms to like jump out of your way, almost kind of dodging to the side. You're not able to really get the angle to shove him off.
Okay. Then that is all I will do with my turn.
Okay.
I might position myself here so that this guy can't hit me as easily.
Okay. So now we're to Jarek.
Let me see. I'll go ahead and fire off my Eldritch Blast, which I recently learned shoots twice. And try and hit this guy.
Which one? I didn't see a ping.
Oh.
That one. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Can you mark which one has the advantage on it for the attack?
Yeah, that would be this guy. Oh, wrong thing. There we go. Okay, 22 hits. Okay. How are you getting up to do this while you're in your hidden position?
I think I would just kind of roll a little bit to poke my belly up, so I can give it a quick squeeze and just push it out.
Okay, so you kind of like shift under the thatch you find yourself in, kind of angling yourself just enough to get over the peak of the roof, and you go, pew, like a cannon almost, the Eldritch Blast flying out of your belly button and across the valley, landing on one of the knolls that's kind of looking over the direction of Rolly, getting struck in the shoulder, kind of taking a more or less kind of glancing blow, but its eyes shift up from Rolly up to you as you see its like nasty snarl kind of grow wider.
And I'll go ahead and hit the one, or fire the other one at the guy next to him.
Okay. That's a hit.
Boop.
And did he light the orb?
He is
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay. So as the first one kind of takes the blow, the second one beside him is kind of like looking around, trying to see what hit him, and then your second blast strikes him, and now they're both kind of focusing on you. Both their expressions rather aggressive.
Good. And as a bonus action, I'm going to go ahead and activate El Pendant of Onyx Shield.
Okay.
It gives me disadvantage on a bunch of stuff because of the shields. Should I ignore that, or is that accurate to what it's doing?
What do you mean gives you disadvantage on a bunch of stuff?
So it is a shield. I'm not proficient with it. Its mechanics.
Yeah, ignore that. I'll find a way to fix that, but it asked me like what kind of item it was, and I put shield. So, yeah, I'll fix that. But yeah, ignore that for now.
Okay, cool. And that will be it for me.
Okay, so now we're down to Valorant, who you've now heard the various bits of combat kind of kicking up, not able to see what's going on, but you more or less understand that the action is upon you, and now is the time to do whatever you wish.
Alright, so I'm going to move. That'll be 10. The log is difficult, so that's 20. I assume.
Yep.
And then to there will be 30. And coming over the log, I take in the view in front of me and swap my glaive over to my left hand and pull a javelin from over my shoulder and hurl it at that guy.
Okay. That is the one that you get advantage on.
All right.
Ooh, that is a miss.
All right. And that's it.
Okay, so Valorant breaks out of his position. Did you just delete yourself, Rolly?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Here, I'll fix it in a second. Valorant leaps out of his position, running into the pass, clearing the log while pulling his javelin out, letting it out wide, and as it flies through the air, the knoll that had just taken the blast is kind of like curling in on itself, trying to like scrape the residue off its face, and it's just enough movement so the javelin goes sailing over its head, and it begins to kind of like square up with the threat that's now appeared from around the structure. So we are back up to Benny now, because we're now in the actual turn order of combat. He has just kind of been like limply laying there, letting the different paws kind of bounce him around and allowing you guys to kind of choose when to act. But now that he sees that things have kicked off, you see him kind of throwing his bow, not away from him, but like down to the side. And he goes to stand up, and as he stands up, he goes to draw the blades from his back, ready to like square up with the two gnolls surrounding him. Now I got to actually use a character on D&D Beyond, which that's not something I do. Okay. So as he sees the gnoll kind of like scratching at its face, hoping to try and like get that weird residue off of its skin, feeling like it's been tainted by this weird holy light that it's find itself kind of spattered with. What's the damage on this? Okay. Benny stands up, and with these like swift, almost like executioner style movements, like so confident that it like appears again unnatural, he like pulls up, grabs his sword, one just strikes clean through the gnoll and just sends it flying about 5 feet as a big red gash kind of fills its chest, and it goes collapsing down on the ground next to him, and he just like turns robotically to the next one, ready to fight yet again. But then we're down to Rolly.
I'm going to rush. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I'm going to go here.
Mm-hmm.
I can make it there, right?
I imagine so.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to cast Spiritual Guardians.
Okay. What is the saving throw on that?
Wisdom 16? Of 16.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So 22 damage.
Nice.
And let me put the
area around you.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do when I deleted myself.
But so the immediate gnolls around you are going to fail. So it's going to do 22 radiant damage to them, correct?
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay. So, Rolly, you step forth, kind of filling the pass with your presence as you reach out to the mother, and you feel the angelical dwarves that you call upon kind of filling your immediate area. And as you go charging towards the gnolls on the lower level, you see them all like having this panic look on their face, unsure of what this weird magical concoction is, before one of the angelic dwarves comes like dancing up and just plows his tankard into the lower chin of one of the gnolls, sending like various like cracked broken teeth flying out of his mouth as he goes sailing up into the sky, like hitting the boulder behind him and kind of limply collapsing to the ground. You have murdered this man, and you have murdered this man. So basically just scattering the two gnolls that were kind of like their eyes darting around, not quite sure where to go, like again just kind of coming to the knowledge that they are in grave danger before the angelic dwarves just kind of pound them into non-existence. And then the one near Benny also gets hit but does not go down. So anything else, sir?
No, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, no, I'm done with movement. I'm done.
Okay, Thor, up to you. You're muted.
I'm gonna attack the one in front of me.
Okay.
Yikes.
That is a miss, sir.
Yep. And I will attack him again.
Okay. Okay, that is a hit.
Oh wait, that's an athletics. I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. It's still +8 to hit. We're just rolling damage. Just whatever. So 15 damage.
Okay. Are you choosing to use your sword's ability?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay.
And if thematically, if I can, I'd like to stab and kind of push him off at the same time and move down to here. It's kind of like I'm rushing into him and we're just both falling off.
Okay. So let me go ahead and... So, as you, fail to shove him, you now squaring off, this Gnoll kind of ready to fight you, still not convinced that it's time to run yet. You just jam your rapier through him entirely, and you see, as you've seen a couple times at this point, the light immediately fade from him as his body becomes limp. You carry your momentum through him, kind of jumping off the cliff with him in your arms as you leave behind the spectral figure that you summoned still up on the cliff behind you, as you jump down with the now dead Gnoll's body, kind of landing with the sword on the ground, pulling it out. Give me a acrobatics check real quick.
Acrobatic.
Okay, it's not the most graceful landing. You're able to do the movement that you wanted, but as you land, it's kind of weird having a body underneath you as you hit the ground. So your foot slips, you kind of stumble a little bit, but you're still able to manage getting back up and ready and kind of aware of your surroundings.
All right, so I'll count that as 5, 15?
We'll say that's 10 feet of movement.
Oh, okay. And then I'd like to just close this gap.
Okay.
And then just stand in his face. Ha ha!
Okay.
That is the end of my turn.
Okay. Jarek?
To activate the Pocket Sun would be a single action, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They're still not really that close. And it's pretty dark out here, though, right?
Yeah, it's not pitch black because you're kind of functioning by the moonlight, but it's fairly dark.
Okay. Okay. I'll go ahead and activate it.
Okay.
And that way it'll give...
You basically fill the whole valley with light. Some of it being dim, some of it being bright, but more or less everything is lit up to some extent.
Does it seem like it hurts their eyes?
Probably the best you would be able to discern is the Gnoll's kind of on the eastern cliff. As they are looking at you, having seen you kind of fire off your flesh cannon over the lip of the house, as they are looking at you and you set off the Pocket Sun, you see them kind of shield their eyes just ever so slightly, and they kind of refuse to look at it. So mechanically, you could kind of assume that they would not want to look in that direction.
And then as a bonus action, I'll go ahead and throw Bardic Inspiration towards Valor and just, try and hit him again.
Okay. So then we are to Gnoll boys. So, at this point, they've lost 4 Gnolls in very quick succession. Let me, okie dokie. So as combat begins to ensue and everyone is, going through the actions that they had prepared, Rolly surrounded by his dwarves, Thor leaping over cliffs, Jarek firing artillery shells out of his belly button, and Valorn kind of squaring off in the center. The Gnolls look at the pandemonium that is kicked off in the last 6 seconds and immediately decide to turn tail and run, having no concern for who they're leaving behind or how many are getting out. It's every man for himself at this point as they all turn and begin to flee. It's 5, 10. Yeah, so let me just measure it real quick. It'd be easier. I think they can all reach. Yeah, and then he would just get attack opportunity. So all of the Gnolls on the eastern cliff side immediately turn and begin to turn tail and run. Some of them even dropping their weapons as they just begin to run for the hills, quite literally. The one next to Benny will try and turn and run, which gives him... Okay, Benny misses. So as Benny like is turning to face the other one, that one just kind of like shakes a little bit and begins to try and flee. But if they leave, oh no, it's the beginning of their turn. They take the spiritual guardian. So that's a 16. Let me check that real quick. Fantastic. So as he begins to like turn and run, you see Benny's sword kind of missing over his head. But as the gnoll's like going to try and leave your area of influence, you see one of the angelic dwarves kind of like jump on its back and just begin like pounding it with a spigot for a cask in the back of the head as it just like falls to the ground, little like light burst coming off of the back of its skull, as your radiant force kind of deals the killing blow, and then the one that is with you, Thor, is going to attempt to flee, so you get attack of opportunity. That is a miss, and so I think he can more or less, so he's just gonna book it for the hills. So basically at this point, all combatants are off the field. They are fairly, yeah.
I'm just wondering if I ran, if 1, 2, 3, 4. Because if I could make it here, that would engage this one.
I just moved them quickly. These are all off the map.
Oh,
I just threw them up there real quick. Right. Yeah. So like they're all gone at this point. So you guys can attempt to like pursue them, but given kind of the speed you've seen them use, it might be kind of a fruitless endeavor. Benny, without missing a beat, as he sees the last one in front of him kind of fall, looks at the ones fleeing, turns and goes, "We shall go!" And just begins like kind of power jogging up past their like where they kind of disappeared, not really caring if you guys are following after him.
Follow after him. I've got 10 minutes on this bad boy. So.
Yeah, and I don't know the movement on my spectral figure, but
it has to just stick with you. But more so, I think it was a minute. Did we say was how long it was up after you used it? Or did we give a time limit to it?
Sure.
Yeah. Reasonably, by the time you could even feasibly re-engage with them, I imagine that would be gone. Rolly's thing would probably maybe be gone. We're going to discuss quite how this is going to transpire, but it's kind of like, what are you guys doing now as they're running and Benny's running?
I'm full sprinting after the one that just left me to try to get into its combat range again.
What is your speed?
40.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you can actually catch up to it.
Okay.
So Thor's pursuing his. What is everyone else doing?
Yeah, I'm running as fast as I can down this valley.
Okay, so everyone's... Oh, wait, so you would catch it eventually, because he's dashing and you would be trying to move and attack. So you'd have to do like a second round to actually get to an attack and Thor. So Rolly, your speed's 25, Valorant's yours is 30, correct?
I'm actually going to call out for Belgries, who would have been left nearby.
Okay.
Off map. And once he gets to me, I can get on board, and his speed is 60.
Okay, so we're gonna retrofit this ever so slightly to make this work. There are 4 gnolls left. Daniel, you are chasing this one. I'm gonna move Rolly over here, Benny over here, and Valorant, you are on Belgries, pursuing, because you're technically large. We've discussed this before. Okay. Yeah. So the way that we're going to do this is every 1d4 rounds, you guys will get an action to attempt to attack. And then there's a certain amount of rounds that they will kind of get away from you. That sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So they get...
How can I keep up? I have a speed of 30.
Probably not, because they have a speed of 30. So they would just keep dashing and just keep getting away from you. Like, you could keep your distance, but you were even kind of far back when they left. So the only reason Thor can catch him is because you have 10 speed on them.
Yeah, like, my plan was to close a distance, and then, like, try to sentinel one so that it can't flee.
Yeah.
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 Okay, I'm just making sure.
That's what we're getting to. I'm trying to figure out who can reasonably keep up with them is the plan right now. Which I think is just you and Valorant.
Can the other guy not keep up either?
No, Benny, so anyone with a generic 30 speed is not going to be able to catch them. You can keep your distance with them, but you can't catch them. That's the difference between Valorant and you.
Then how far away would they be from me?
Kind of figuring out where they were at the end of the round. I mean, it's probably like, you're seeing if you have like a ranged ability.
Yeah,
I would say they're about 100 feet, more or less.
Okay, because I have two things I can do that are 120 feet.
Okay.
And one that's 90. If I could get within 90 feet, that would be very useful. But
Rolly, do you have anything of that range?
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, definitely. So
Okay.
as long as I can see them, I'm still in the fight.
Okay, so we'll go with initiative order. So Rolly and Jarek, you can only use ranged things that cover 100 feet or more. Valorant and Thor, you will get a action every so often as you catch up, and we'll go until it ends. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
Just a question. Are they like running? Are they just full out bolting? Like they're not attempting to fight?
They're not attempting to fight. They're just fleeing because they're outnumbered and very much outgunned. So.
And I'm just going to recklessly attack each time.
Okay. Okie dokie. So we'll go with initiative order, except Valorant, you still had a turn after the Knolls from last round. So I'm going to say that you kind of used that round to call upon Belgrease, mount up, and then go charging after them. So I'm going to give you the first attack.
So my expectation is that on Belgrease, I'm actually quite a bit faster than they are. I want to dash in front of them and try to herd them.
Okay, what's your speed with Belgrease?
60, so if I'm dashing, 120.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's reasonable. Give me an animal handling check, because you are moving through this kind of like mountainous, kind of semi-difficult terrain. You're very well tuned with Belgrease. It's just kind of to make sure that you're able to get through the pass and around him and facilitate everything you're trying to do. Okay. Okay. So, is it reasonable to assume that in your travels you really haven't done a lot of like mountaineering with Belgrease? You know, you're kind of more in the woodland realm, more or less, as you kind of go around.
More or less.
Okay. So, having kind of this is your first initial outing with Belgrease on here. Go ahead and roll me another one just to see where you land. Another animal handling check. You begin to pursue them with that like vicious intent that Valorant carries, ready to do harm. Belgrease, like the kind of confidence that you would usually have with him, his hoofs kind of hitting rocks and kind of like throwing his balance out ever so slightly, not quite enough to really jostle you, but like every fourth or fifth step, he kind of loses his momentum, kind of having to stop, kind of sliding a little bit, like losing his footing here and there. It takes a little bit. He does eventually kind of get up to speed and goes like hammering past or hammering towards the Knolls that you're pursuing. But due to the kind of limitation or the having to learn on the job of going down this mountain pass, you're only really able to catch them, not move past them for this round. So, you can go ahead and use an action if you would like.
All right. Well, the attempting to dash would be an action, unless you want to give me.
Well, I was saying, yeah. I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not super experienced with mounted combat. When Belgrease is dashing, you're not dashing, correct? Or does it count as your character dashing as well?
There's two different ways to handle it in the rules. Since he's acting on my turn, I would have to look it up, and that would take time. We'll come back around to it afterward.
Yeah. We'll go with what we have now. But what I have in mind is that he is doing the dashing. You are free to use an action.
Okay.
Okay. So, due to the jostling and the kind of rough go of trying to get Belgrease up behind them, it just kind of distracts you enough that you can't land your blow on them. Them still, like, scuttering, kind of using rocks and stuff, like leaping from one to the other, which also makes it kind of difficult to get beside one, get on top of one, and land a blow, but still pursuing them. So, now we are to Rolly, who you're hoofing it, throwing stuff. Actually, since you aren't dashing on your turn, they would grow out of range, right? Because they're going 60 feet, you're going 25 feet. So every turn that you move and took an action, they would be gaining 30 feet away from you, right?
Dash bonus action. If you have a bonus action range spell.
I mean, is this
where people on the map? No, the map is no longer relevant. I'm just using it to keep track of what's going on. They're off the map, like 100 feet away, like being chased.
Then no, I guess I wouldn't be able to do anything.
Well, I mean, I'm saying you could probably hit them this round, but they'd probably grow out of your range next round.
Okay, I'd fire off a guiding bolt. One more guiding bolt.
Okay.
Let's see. There we go. Another 20 to hit.
Okay, that hits.
But of course, the virtual dice is right over the rolling icon. All right, there we go. All right, 17 damage.
So, why am I not able to? There we go. So Thor, as you are hauling ass behind these gnolls, like almost kind of mimicking their movements, as you've, grown up in the mountains, you're kind of used to moving around, boulders and rocks and cliffs. You see this beam of blue light, like a homing missile, kind of like leaping over rocks, going under, various bits of debris, like up and over cliffs and kind of circling through various, kind of things that would stop it. It goes like sailing over your shoulder and strikes the gnoll in the back that you're chasing as it kind of like stumbles for a second, but uses that stumble to kind of continue its momentum charging forward. But it has that residual kind of glowing light on it that allows you to strike it a bit more true. So now we're to you, Thor. You're muted.
Do I get one hit or two?
We'll go with one.
Okay. So I won't reckless this because I don't need to this time.
Okay.
27 to hit.
Okay.
11 damage because I'm still attempting to continue a rage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have to hit something in order to continue it. Yeah. Be hit.
So as the light kind of glows on his back, you kind of like glance back to see the very quickly fading image of Rolly as he's kind of like lowering his hand from casting the spell, and you dive your rapier forward and you clean it straight through the gnoll's back, like right dead center in the middle of its glowing residual energy, and letting out like one kind of final death cry as it kind of like glides across the rocks, kind of sending a few pebbles scattering here and there, but you have dealt with him. So that is one gnoll down. And then, Jarek, this would be your last turn to do something as an action before they're out of range.
I would go ahead and take a leaf out of Rolly's book and send out a guiding bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Do a second level spell slot.
Okay, that hits.
Is 5d6.
Jesus Christ. Okay, that's straight 22.
Yep.
Okay, so again, you guys see from farther back this time, and a little bit more wiggly than Rolly's, you see this guiding bolt like sailing through the various bits of terrain, kind of like swirling up and down as it's like hovering like a foot above the ground over the various rocks, where it strikes a gnoll in the back, again kind of making him falter for just a moment as it like regains its momentum and continues to run, leaving the distinct kind of sloppy residue that Jarek's guiding bolt leaves behind, as you guys are still pursuing it. Then we get down to Valorant. So are you still attempting to get by them and hurt them?
Yeah, I just looked it up, and it looks like your instincts on that were correct. So Belgrease's turn is to dash to try to get me ahead of them, and then my turn will be to attempt to intimidate them into stopping turning, altering their path.
Okay. So go ahead and roll me intimidation then. Okay, let's see how they're feeling right now. Fantastic. So, Thor, as you strike one down and you see the second one beside you getting struck, you see Valorant with a of renewed commitment go racing over them, actually using Belgrease to jump over one of the like pounding knolls on the earth and landing, and it's almost like valiant display of Belgrease is this monstrous horse, and it's almost the size of two knolls combined. And so as he lands, glaive in hand, vicious eyes turning to look at them, you see them almost Scooby-Doo like throwing their feet in front of them, trying to slow themselves down, kicking up more debris as they're like scuttering, and one of them actually like hits the side of Belgrease and kind of collapses down as the other ones try and like book it other directions. I'm going to say mechanically what this does is slow them down enough to allow Jarek and Rolly to be in range yet again next round, because they didn't really get to move this round. And Valorant, of course, you get your action as one is in range and prone beside you. Okay, so as it like hits the side of Belgrease, you hear Belgrease loud, it's like and then you just like reach down with your glaive, just striking across its chest. It's like its feeble little kind of mangled null arms like shriveling up and trying to like slap away the blade. It's now cleaning itself across its chest. You deal 13 damage to it.
Yep.
So this is not the one that had the guiding bolt on it. That would be that one. You struck this one in the middle. But yeah, you send a nice little cleave across it, very much injuring it as you kind of prevent them from moving farther forward. And then we will get to Rolly, who you are in range yet again this round.
Okay. So nobody attacked the... Oh, yeah.
This one is injured, and this one is injured.
Okay, and which one has the advantage from...
The one with the yellow dot on it.
Okay. So I'll... do I move my character forward at all? Or
no, movement's relative right now.
Okay, got you. Then I'm going to take my crossbow.
Okay.
And attack with advantage the one that got hit by Jarrett.
Okay. So I think what I'm going to settle on, because are you using your barrel or are you using your crossbow?
No, just a regular crossbow.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that does hit.
Okay, and 8. Nice.
Okay. So as the one that's still kind of glistening from the guiding bolt is kind of stopped by Valorant's horse, he kind of turns to the side and decides that going like downhill, down this kind of like rocky valley is the best choice. And he's like going to do it. A fucking bolt just comes flying out of nowhere, striking it through the throat, kind of sending its neck sideways before it goes tumbling down the rock side, just sending multiple different chunks of the mountainside down with it, clattering and hitting before it ends up dead at the base of the cliff. Solid. And now Thor.
So since they didn't move, do I get my full round of attack?
No, we're just doing one action per thing because you guys are like actively sprinting after them.
Okay.
It makes sense. Roll with it.
Okay. Do I get like flanking advantage on the one that Valorant's engaged with? Or,
yeah, because it's not moving, it's prone. Yeah, I'd say you could hit it and have advantage. Okay, that hits.
8.
8?
Yep.
Okay, so as Valorant strikes it, you kind of run in, ganging up on it, striking it again. It's still kind of like batting its hands around, trying to cover up the various wounds, now being like full of like Swiss cheese holes. It's still alive, but it's it's losing its fight very quickly. Okay. Alright. So now we're to Jarek. You're in range again because of Valorant's maneuver.
I'll go ahead and snap off Eldritch Blast. Do I get both counts?
Yeah, because you're firing its one action, but like you get 2 projectiles, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and aim at that one first.
Mm-hmm. You get disadvantage because he's prone. You're using a ranged attack.
Well, then I'm assuming the 11 wouldn't hit anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. And try and hit the other one with the second bolt, I guess.
Okay.
Get out of my way.
That's a hit. Okay. So, same as the kind of guiding bolt, but this time it's a lot more like angular. Instead of like slowly adjusting its course and like fluid movements, the Eldritch Blast kind of like ping-pongs off of various things like a bowling ball at a bowling lane before it finds its target, not really dealing a bunch of damage after being, sent such a long distance. It's kind of like glancing over the shoulder of one of the gnolls as it kind of like looks down and kind of like angrily snarls at it before it continues its attempt to escape. But you deal a whopping 2 damage to him. And we are back up to Valorn.
So the one that one is still prone, or it's gotten up?
Yeah, it's still prone.
It's still prone? Okay. I'm gonna turn my attention to one that isn't prone.
Okay.
And right after it and try to hit it.
Okay. Okay, that's a hit. Okay. So as the one that's prone is kind of stuck, like being kind of centered around Thor and yourself, so you ride off towards the one that's still trying to flee, catching it in the back, and kind of shifting its direction ever so slightly to the right. That has to have you kind of readjust, focusing on him again. But you do land a blow, but it's not any sort of debilitating blow at this point. But he does take the damage. So now at this point, the prone gnoll that's beneath you, Thor, stands up, kind of looking at you, and he's going to try and sprint away from you, which will give you your attack of opportunity. That is a miss. Stabbing forward, you're so used to things just dying when you stab them that you're not used to them like actually standing up afterwards. So you strike and you kind of like look up like right for the next thing, and then you notice the gnoll standing up. You're like, oh shit! You swing again. You kind of just like miss over his head as he begins to kind of scurry, almost like still half prone, kind of crawling away from you very quickly. But yeah, so now we are to. So I would say that the one that just stood up is still within range of Rolly and Jarek. So Rolly, you can attack the one that's scuttering away if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, and I just realized that I thought that it was longer range, but the crossbow is 80 feet of range. So that last one,
you would have had disadvantage then, right?
Yeah, that would have been disadvantage on that last one.
That's fine. I should have caught that, but not a big deal.
All right, so I'm gonna try and fire again. At the non-prone, no? Well,
they're both stood up at this point, yeah.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah, the one that on the left then.
Yep.
But I'm not within 80 feet, though, right?
Yeah, so it would be within disadvantage.
Okay. 12 hit.
Ooh, no, 12 does not hit.
Okay.
So you loose another bolt. Thor, you hear the mechanical clicking of the crossbow behind you, and you see the bolt kind of flying nearby, not quite enough to land on the gnoll that is like scuttering away. So now we are to you, Thor.
Alright, so I get my one hit.
Yes.
Reckless hit. 13.
Okay. And you've already expended your charge of your thing, correct? And you wouldn't really use it if you had it anyway. Okay. So as it's like scuttering away and you see the crossbow bolt kind of hitting a boulder up on the cliff to your left, you just like chase after it, your thundering footsteps like easily filling the sound around you past his kind of like scraping claws, and you just jab the rapier in the back of him again, this time ceasing his movement. He's like splays it on the ground, his tongue kind of lolling out of it a little bit, licking up a little bit of dust as he kind of scrapes a little bit forward. But that deals with him, and we're at Jarek, who you're out of range of this guy at this point, so Valor, and you are up to hit the one that is fleeing. Yes.
Can I attempt with my crossbow?
Sure, yeah.
It's 320 feet at disadvantage, so.
Yeah, you could attempt to be disadvantaged, but go for it.
Okay.
This is like when he rolls 2 nat 20s.
Yeah, right. Or not.
Or not.
Okay, so question for you. When I roll with disadvantage, I take the one that's lower, correct?
Are you going to roll a lucky die?
I am.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So, as I understand, it would just replace my
Yep.
7 there. Okay.
Here it comes. As an 8.
Yeah, but you take the highest one.
It hits. There you go. So,
Good.
Jarek, explain to me how you feel when you get this shot. Like, how are you doing this?
So, I think Jarek is just trying to... and he fires wildly up into the air, and through the grace of, his ancestors, or through what I could only call sheer dumb luck, it actually arcs in the perfect parabolic way that it comes down and strikes the... what's the damage going to be?
Okay.
6 damage.
Okay. So, Jarek, as you stand up on the roof proper and kind of hop down and begin chasing after them, like, as you're running, the crossbow kind of, like, jiggling in your hand as you're trying to aim it properly, you let the bolt loose. As you see it fly, you're like, yeah, fuck it, not that. And you begin to, like, start loading the next one. And as you're loading the next one, you, like, peer to see, the gnoll still running. And as you do, you see this tiny, tiny sliver of something falling from the sky, descending towards it, and you're like, no. And then it hits the back of the knoll, and you see it go like, and like continue running as there's like a bolt now sticking out of its shoulder. Valorant, you would see this crossbow bolt descend from the heavens and land in this knoll as you are still pursuing it. And Jarek just like, and keep reloading and stumbling forward.
On that note, could I utilize my psychic blades with that?
I imagine that was coming, sure, if you want to do that.
Wonderful. Did that roll?
Yes. So it's going to be 16? Okay. So as this crossbow bolt goes landing in the shoulder, the initial impact kind of causing the gnoll to be like, But then Valorant, as you're the one who's closest in witnessing this, you're like, what the shit? And you look back down and you see these 2 purple small like blades, almost looking like leaves almost, begin like cycloning around the tip of the crossbow bolt, kind of digging itself deeper into the gnoll's flesh, and you hear it like letting out this horrible cry, reaching up, like grabbing its shoulder, its own nails trying to like dig into its flesh to pull it out, but it's like can't quite get up to it on its shoulder as it digs far enough that it eventually hits its chest, and it just goes it like hits the ground dead, tongue lolling out, ending the final gnoll in your pursuit. So you guys are stretched out over a fair distance at this point, but I assume as the last gnoll is dealt with, everyone's still trundling forward. You all kind of regroup now that the entire patrol has been dealt with. So
yeah, where's Betty White in all of this?
So as you guys have been chasing them up the mountain pass, Betty is not the fastest moving man that you have seen. He's a bit slower than most, but he was diligently like trudging along behind everybody. He's about probably where Jarek is when Jarek finishes firing his last bolt. And so once he sees the gnoll like hit the ground and die, he just like turns over to you, Jarek, and goes, "Good shot." And then begins like trudging forward again, just like racing towards like the rest of the party.
Out of breath, Jarek would just write, "Yeah, that's how we do it in the Golden Hearts."
So I guess Valorant and Thor, you would kind of be grouped up near the front as Rolly, Betty, and Jarek kind of like bring up the rear and come, kind of checking the different gnolls along the way, making sure they're not acting as Betty, or not Betty, Benny. You call him Betty. As Benny's expertise. Yeah, thank you. Had caused this whole plan to kick into action anyway. So they all come up and collect. Benny kind of coming into the center of everybody, kind of glancing around, looking at the last gnoll that the psychic blades are still kind of digging into as you all approach. And he just like looks kind of up in the general vague direction of where you guys assume kind of the fort is, and he goes, "Well, we shall continue. Good job." And just like begins to kind of briskly walk in that direction.
Can I just, in the time that it takes them to catch up, can I have probably ask Valorant if he'll help me look through these bodies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead, give me investigation with advantage then, Thor.
Oh, I was gonna have Valorant do it because I'm really bad at finding things.
Oh, I thought you were asking him to help, but that's
okay.
fine. Okay. So as you're kind of looking around, pretty out of breath, but you're a pretty athletic man, but sprinting and fighting that distance is a fairly arduous thing to achieve. So as you're kind of just like glancing around, getting like a general idea of what these guys might have on them, you very quickly figure out that these guys are given the most shit tier level of equipment. Like their armor is kind of nonsense. Their weapons are like crude and mismanaged, chipped and kind of cracked in various places. There's not a ton usable on them. It's mostly just kind of like scrap that facilitates them being a little bit more effective.
Figured. Just thought I'd check.
So shit tier, is that like S tier?
Yes, precisely.
Alright, then I will, I guess that'll probably be about the time that I meet Benny White, and I will just say, lead on, Benny White! And I will continue forward.
Okay. Is the rest of the party just kind of grouping up and following?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quit running so fast.
Oh hey, that was about how far you should probably be in each fight, just by the way. But nice shot, though.
Duly noted.
So as Betty is kind of leading, again, not very concerned about how close you guys are following, he begins to kind of just like talk in front of him, just hoping that you guys kind of are listening. Well, it appears that we are probably a day or two travel from the fort, and we should have some sort of plan on how we will approach. I imagine any commander worth his salt would have various patrols lined upon the road on the way there, so I imagine we will not get there completely unscathed, but as long as we more or less achieve some sort of surprise upon the fort itself, we can hopefully have a better time of assaulting it.
Is he just talking to the air?
Yes.
What did he mention earlier about the waterfall?
Did anyone remember this?
That's where the
It's a
hidden
secret entrance under a frozen waterfall. I wrote this down. That goes into the cellar of the fort.
I think we need to find the hidden entrance. Don't think the front door is where we need to be.
I agree with you, my young master, short master. I think that getting to the waterfall, or the vertical river, and finding some way through the ice is our most likely outcome that will brew success.
Agreed. Do you know which side of the fort it's on?
I was told that on the last leg of the approach to the fort, where the mountain pass zigzags back and forth to ascend up to the final heights of the mountain, as we come to the final curve in the road, we go down the rocky cliffside to the frozen lake, and that is where the waterfall lets out, and that is where we will find our entrance.
Got it. And then I'm gonna just keep my eyes forward, trying to see if I see any other patrols or anything, because he was talking to the air about patrols.
So it's gonna be mainly the only thing this road leads to is the fort. So really you guys are just kind of going down this road towards where you hope the fort kind of is. You could attempt to kind of break off from the road and travel more in like the wilderness of the mountains to get to it, but that would be incredibly difficult for the most part. So it's kind of up to you guys how you want to approach, but there is a fair bit of travel between here and the fort itself, maybe about a day of traveling. So you're going to go through the night, because you kind of are starting at dawn here, a little bit after dawn maybe, and then traveling, and then probably getting to it the next day. So you have like a day of traveling ahead of you, however you want to handle that, what you want to be looking out for, that kind of thing.
Are we leaving the wagon back at Benny's guard post?
I imagine so, unless otherwise.
Probably tell Adam to take it back to town.
Okay.
Keep his whistle handy.
We can send word when it's time to meet back up.
So I imagine, Valorant, you're still on Belgrade and everyone else is on foot.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question to you all. We probably don't want to get sunk into another combat, correct?
No, I want to go. Let's fight.
I mean, does everyone have time? That's more my question.
I've got 30 minutes.
I think Rob is also dying.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get up to the fight, and then we'll leave it as a cliffhanger, despite Valorant's chomping at the bit. But, so go ahead and... I guess everyone go ahead and give me a perception roll real quick. Okay. If only you guys could roll this for initiative. Yeah.
I did roll what I did roll what I rolled for initiative.
Will we be getting a long rest in before the fort?
If you guys stop, this coming night would be your long rest. So you wouldn't have it right now. It would be kind of near the end.
Okay.
Okay. So as you guys continue to kind of plod forward on this road, it's very clear that this road hasn't really functioned as like a proper road for quite some time. A lot of the maintenance that it's supposed to be kept up with has kind of fallen by the wayside. There's actual like chunks of the road missing that's kind of like fallen into different canyons and cliffs that kind of border the edge of the road. So you have to like kind of steer clear of that and make sure you don't, fall victim to any kind of loose dirt or loose rocks that kind of hold it up. You are extremely high in elevation at this point. You are very gradually reaching closer and closer to the peaks of the Hunter's Ridge Mountains, to the point where you're almost at the ridge line that really separates the eastern and the western part of the mountain ridge itself. And so, high winds and like soaring birds like high up in the sky and like this kind of dry, rocky, kind of snow spattered terrain is what you're kind of trudging through. But it's giving you an excellent view of the countryside, like these almost kind of breathtaking bits of scenery that you would, normally as like a human being stop at like a viewing point along the road and kind of look over the majestic landscape. But it gives you a better kind of general understanding of the world that you function in, as far as like the western side of the Giles Kingdom is concerned. You kind of able to discern like, oh, I've been there, and we went that way up there, and we stopped up there, and that's where we would love, like, Corel would roughly be around here, and that kind of thing. And it's a nice kind of informative experience, more or less, as you continue to travel forward. You guys starting traveling maybe around like 6 or 7. It's reaching around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Benny's still kind of like trudging along, before, I'm assuming he's still in the lead unless anyone else kind of wants to move in front of him. But as you are walking, he stops and kind of like holds one of his hands up in like a closed fist motion, just kind of like staring up towards one of the like the curves in the road that go around a particular kind of jagged rock formation. So I imagine everyone stops behind him.
Is this the spot?
Yeah, so you guys all stop, and he turns to you, and not dropping his voice at all, still speaking in that like very clear and like well-traveled voice. Listen, there is something ahead. I think this may be a proper position to recuperate and prepare for the fight that is to come. So, if you all stopped and listened after his kind of like almost booming voice, more or less, if you're kind of craning your hearing, focusing in on the various sounds that come to your ears, kind of drifting along the different winds in the mountain range and the few kind of gusts that carry up certain, like from the lower elevation up to the higher elevation, you hear distant, but like kind of echoey, like hyena and their gnoll cackles, bits of like stones or boulders or like banging noises, kind of echoing through the chasm that's kind of in front of you. It's far enough away that it's not any sort of immediate threat. It definitely carries farther and allows you to hear farther up on top of the mountain range. But that's what you would hear, and that's what he's kind of alluding to.
Yeah, I think we should definitely rest up, make sure everybody's at their best before we head forward. I'm good to go. I know Valorant's good to go, but these two, not good to go.
I'm a little tired. That was a very tall mountain to climb.
Yes, after slaughtering so many of them while you just stood there again, Thor, I am a bit tired.
Mm-hmm. It's alright, old man. I can take it.
Well, most warriors require sleep, so we shall set aside a position in which you can facilitate that sleep and recover for tomorrow.
We really need to work on your vocabulary. There are other words than facilitate.
Facilitate is the most commonly used verb in the common language.
I will facilitate your learning.
Alright, well, let's go find a place to set up.
Benny, just curious. Could we see your face? I'd just like to know who I'm really dealing with.
We're friends now.
I was not aware that we had formed friendship.
Comrades through blood, I suppose.
Surprise.
Is that how most of your friendships occur? Splattering yourself with animal blood? Is that the ritual that you go through?
It's more mating, but close enough.
Well, I suppose we are friends at this point, and if we are to do battle together, it would be best to understand everybody's quirks. And so as he says this, he kind of like looks up to make sure that the noise that he's hearing, nothing new kind of piques his interest, and he grabs up with his hands, lifting his helmet off. And as you do, very slowly, the kind of like leather curtain that's covering the lower part, it like drags up and eventually reveals him. You see a bone-white skeleton underneath, completely devoid of any sort of flesh at this point. And he pulls it off, and more or less is a humanoid shape, but the actual bone structure of the skull appears to be more kind of, you've seen plenty of like orc skulls or goblin skulls from the bits of combat that you have gone through, the different monasteries you've delved into, and so it is distinctly a more kind of orcish, harsh, kind of like jutting angle skull. It's a bit of a thicker head as well than like a normal human head would be, and so he just like pulls the helmet off, and his empty eye socket just kind of like look up at you, and then he just waits.
I look at Valoran right then.
You see, Valerie, that's proof right there that it's a friendly undead. So this sword might just be a sentient sword, not necessarily evil. See, it's all coming around now, full circle. What the hell are you?
And look back at.
I think Jarek would just kind of like reach up, grab the helmet, and push it back on his head, and be like, yeah.
He just like does it with you, and then turns to roll. He goes, "I am a hobgoblin, sir."
Not currently living when I see.
No, I have been dead for quite some time.
So how are you here?
I seem to have angered a power that has cursed my soul to wander this realm with the skeletal remains of my body.
Would you like a sword?
I already have two. I have two hands.
Might be right up your alley. Here,
I guess.
Give it a try. See if you like it.
Can
Give me another wisdom saving throw there, Rolly. I believe in you.
Theoretically, I should be good at these.
You should be great at this.
Should have been the first time, too.
Okay, thank God. So we'll say that in the kind of trudge that you guys were doing up to this, you decided that this was kind of the downtime that you can use to unattune, kind of separate yourself from this weapon. Finally able to do so. Like, just as you're about to finish it off, the whole time, Bloodcleaver having tried to convince you otherwise, you just hear like, fucking damn it, Rolly. God damn it. I thought we do great things together. Great things. And then as like mid, telepathic thought, you like cut him off and you feel that separation. Handing it over to him now, you do feel this kind of like growing bit of anger inside of you that kind of like comes up to your chest, but it fades away rather quickly once you actually leave your grip from the weapon, handing it over to him. He just kind of like grabs the sword and kind of like looks down at it and just looks up at the various people and looks down at the sword. He goes, "This weapon looks acceptable."
It's evil, you know.
It's not evil. It might be evil. Be careful with it.
Yeah,
I have tangled with evil before.
Clearly.
But are we giving a guy who's technically, immortal a weapon that could potentially corrupt him and turn him against us?
Yeah. I am not immortal. I am dead.
But you're still alive.
I would not call this living.
Okay.
I just want to be clear. You were able to essentially survive past death, and you didn't have to sell your soul to anyone.
No, my soul has been trapped by another entity and is being held on this plane. That is why I cannot leave.
Do you know who or where?
I lost track of him some time ago after I destroyed his mortal existence. I have not had any hint or sign of him since, so I have dedicated my life, or what's left of whatever life I may lead, to helping various other people steer clear of the evil that dots this realm.
But what was the thing's name? What was it?
I do not know its name, because I simply sought to destroy it. It was rather twisted and, I guess, evil is the word that you would use in this situation. Necromantic wizard that was harassing my tribe. I went to deal with it, and after I dealt with it, I felt myself grow ill, and then I found myself leaving this realm, and then being trapped, being forced back into my remains after I had been buried.
What species was it?
It was an elf.
Okay.
And where
You all seem rather curious about this.
Yeah, well, we've had dealings with necromancers before, so we're just making sure it's not the same one. But also,
you have killed these necromancers, I imagine.
Well, that guy has killed one before.
Looks over to Valor, which I'm assuming you're pointing to him.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah. Just looks over at Valor and goes, "Good job, sir."
I thought so.
Precisely.
There's a remarkable lack of vocabulary lately. We should all get together and have a reading circle or something.
Why would we do that?
Are there conditions for your release? Do you know?
I have the faintest clue. I certainly did not get a rundown of information as I was removing his head from his body.
If you just, jumped into a bonfire, would it burn your bones away?
I have tried ending this existence in various ways. all of them seem to end up with me returning back to my form after some variation of time.
Well, I do know some powerful clerics that might have some answers for you. Have you sought help among any of the priestly orders?
My experience with races that claim to be holy tend not to accept me into their populace.
Oh, just bag that right there. I'm a race that's holy, and I've accepted you for the time being.
Well, that is because we have shared animal blood together. We are friends.
Yes,
That's very
and
true.
I've shared animal blood with other people, so by virtue of the blood sharing, you're good now.
Well, I hope that I was adequate before. Well, if you could help facilitate my removal of this. Yes, precisely.
Yes.
Did Buffy come up into the mountains?
Not to your knowledge, no.
Okay. Just curious.
Well, Benny, if you could keep watch for us while we take a nap, that would be delightful.
Yes.
I'll watch with Benny for like a little bit.
That is acceptable.
It is indeed.
Vinny, you don't need to sleep, I'm assuming.
No, I am cursed forever being in this presence.
I would suggest that Benny takes all the watches and we can just have one person with him at all times.
I just want to stay up and ask him a bunch of questions.
Okay. But yeah, so more or less the party is kind of like stepping off the road as much as you can up in these mountain ranges, kind of like trying to find some sort of semi-defensible place to rest and prepare for the next kind of leg of the journey.
Yes, indeed.
Do you have a need to roleplay your questions, or do you just want to like rapid fire questions?
I don't even know how to ask some of the questions that I want to ask. It's just more of like I just want to get a general history on the guy. Like, where is he from? What happened to him? Like I want to know his life and see if that pertains to anything that has to do with us at all.
Okay, so you're just trying to kind of discern if the forces that you've tangled with before have any relevance here.
Or if there are if there are like other forces that also need to be dealt with, or that he claims to have dealt with, but, you know, we need to keep in mind.
Okay, so I'll give you, just picture Benny saying this in his own affliction. Basically the synopsis of his history that he's willing to, disclose to you. He was a hobgoblin warrior in a fair quite some time ago, functioning within general hobgoblin society, not being too unique or special in any sort of way, except there was a necromantic force that kind of was threatening his town more or less, that a lot of the other warriors were too scared or too taboo to mess with it, but it was kind of feeding off the energy of his clan. So he kind of set it upon himself to deal with this threat, trained for it, prepared for it, learned as much as he could, and then dove into this necromantic lair that was nearby, more or less like a cave, slaying the evil elven wizard once he had gotten there, and then thinking that everything was fine, falling ill afterwards, and naturally kind of dying, his body dying, and then after he'd been buried by his clan, he kind of found himself being reawoken underground. That would be kind of the highlights, and roughly, as far as he can gather, having also kind of lost the relevance of like timelines, because he's tried to kill himself in multiple ways, and he finds himself kind of at rest for, a year or two, but then will find himself coming back to his remains again, despite however way he tries to murder himself. So his best guess, it was like 200 odd years ago that these events all took place.
Okay. If I can, wherever that cave was, I can just at some point make a mental note of where that is roughly.
Okay, he's not going to be able to like point it out on a map, because they function a lot more off of like landmarks and like living near somewhere and kind of knowing the general like area around where you live. So he would more or less just kind of tell you that it's like deep in Aether, and that if he ever, gets back there with you, he would gladly show it to you. Okay.
Got it.
So. But yeah, that's about what you would learn on your watch before you, I guess, also rest for the evening. Okay. I guess that's a fitting place to end, because we're ending a little early, but not quite enough time to get into the next combat. But yeah, so the Golden Hearts will hunker down on the wind-swept cliff faces of the Hunter's Ridge Mountains, and we will pick back up next week.
Feels just like home.